All right, so we're live, everyone. We got a very special guest. I think it's probably one of the biggest guests we've ever had on. We've got former manager of Guns N' Roses, amongst many other things. Doug Goldstein's joining us today. Thanks for coming on, Doug.
Hey, thanks for having us, guys. Yeah,
Our pleasure.
It's fantastic. I don't know about biggest. I'm only 5'7.5", but
well, you used to be a bodyguard.
I still can be.
You still can be. That's right. So of course, Doug, we want to talk all about Guns N' Roses. I've got like a laundry list of questions that I'm sure people are gonna learn a lot of interesting things. But we also want to talk about your early years. I want to know how you got into the music industry, and we talked a bit before the podcast started. You worked for an air supply. Didn't you work with David Lee Roth too? As like a bodyguard?
Yeah, well, yeah, I've worked for a number of bands. Basically, my father was martial arts instructor for Estadio Police Department, and I lived in a room. My older brother, 5 years my senior, who passed about 4.5 years ago.
Our condolences.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, great guy. He's in a better place, but he was a phenomenal musician. Point of fact, Axel drugged me in his room in London and was playing me. I didn't realize it was my brother. He goes, "What do you think about this?" I said, "Yeah, the guy's a shit hot guitar player." Yeah. You know who it is? No, I don't. He said, "That's your brother." So anyway, he was playing me from the time I was a kid. In fact, I was just looking at a clip today from 1968. I was born in '61. I was looking at a clip of the Yardbirds, and that was one of the bands my brother turned me on to with, Page and Beck.
Yeah.
So I had this love of music, love of the martial arts. So I started working concert security at age 14 and worked my way through college doing that. Was hired right out of college. I was the chief recruiter of Olympic security for the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics, which I didn't work because I ended up going on the road. But, I've worked 100 Rolling Stones concerts, 100 Who concerts. I've worked for basically every band you've ever heard of.
Did you work the 77 Who show in Cincinnati?
No, I did not. No, I was too young, man. I was only 16, Jeff.
All right, had to ask. I didn't do the math quickly enough in my head.
But you know what? But I've seen my share of broken glass doors. So.
Oh yeah.
So did you have any crazy stories working security for any of the bands, like the Rolling Stones or David Lee Roth?
Yeah, of course I do. Yeah, you guys don't have enough time. One in particular, the Who, they had the same Rolling Stones, same security guys, Rolling Stones, a guy named Jim Callahan, who I heard passed. But anyway, Jim liked me a lot. I was really young, and I was working the guest platform at the LA Coliseum. And he said, "Look, Doug, we're doing a quick out, which means the band comes off the stage into limos and gone." He said, nobody leaves the guest platform until the fireworks go up, which means we're gone. I said, okay. So I'm standing on the platform, and Morgan Fairchild comes up to me at the end of the show with her huge African-American bodyguard and says, "Get out of my way, boy." I said, "Ma'am, I'm just trying to do my job here. Mr. Callahan, head of security, told me that nobody leaves. And so, I'll need you to back up, please." "Fuck you. Clearly you don't know who I am," she says. And she points to her bodyguard, "Kick his ass." And so I said, "Ma'am, hang on a second. Let me talk to your man." And I said, "Please take a step, and I'm going to snap your fucking neck." And I said, "I'm doing my job just like you are. So respect what I'm doing. I'll respect what you do. But I don't care how big you are. I'll break your fucking neck if you take a step at me." And so he looked at her and he said, "Ma'am, the guy's doing his job." And she goes, "You don't understand, boy. I'm Roger Daltrey's girlfriend, and I'm supposed to be in the car with him." And I said, "Ma'am, I'm going to tell you again really nicely. I need you to please step back." And she said, "Fuck you." And she pushed me. I said, "Okay, now we're going in a different direction. So I'm going to tell you this. You're a effing CU." Only I didn't, I'm spotting. Yeah. I'm censoring myself for this podcast.
You're right.
"Step away from me. You went from being really pretty and really nice to being the biggest CU I've ever met in my life. So go F yourself and go stand against that wall, and I'll tell you when you can leave. You're going to be the last person off the platform." So,
you just went from first to last.
Yeah, exactly. You go from the front line to the back line. I'll put a little helmet on you and put you on the short bus, and you'll be on your way.
So was she actually
my area, Kimo?
Yeah. What's that? Sid?
Was she actually one of the girlfriends of the band members?
Who knows? I don't care. I mean, if somebody tells me this is your job, that's my job. I don't care. Right. I mean, it could have been Peter Townsend's mom or Peter Townsend's boyfriend. I wouldn't have cared. I mean, it just is what it is. If somebody tells me something, that's my job, and that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I always start from respect. Always. I'll always give you the benefit of the doubt. I did the same thing with David Geffen during a renegotiation I had to do. And I ended up putting his face on a table with his arm twisted behind him. And you know, and so that was that story.
So we'll get to the Guns N' Roses in a bit. So
how did you end up
hooking up with David Lee Roth?
Lost a bet. No, I had done work for Van Halen, and his head of security, a guy named Eddie Anderson, called me. I was director of security. I wasn't just bodyguard. So I'd show up at the building at, at 9 a.m. I'd meet with the fire chief. I meet with the head of the police department. I meet with local security. And then by the time the band got there, my responsibility was pretty much Steve Vai. Yeah. And I later got Steve his job with a lot of people were kind of pissed off that I got him the job, but with Whitesnake.
Oh.
John David Kolodner, who I love. I love John. He's a classic guy, A&R guy, did Aerosmith, and he'd worked with Zeppelin in the past. But he called me and said, "Hey, Doug, do you still know Steve?" I said, "Yeah, I do." He said, "Well, ask him if he'd like to make $1 million." And, Steve didn't make that kind of money back then. And so I called Steve and said, they want to pay $1 million to do this tour. And he said, "How much?" I said, "Yeah, $1 million.
Right.
I'm in."
And back then, that's what, 2.5 now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Easy. Yeah, Jeff. Yeah.
I take it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So after
not 3.5, who knows?
So after, David Lee Roth, then how did you end up, because I know you didn't become the manager for Guns till 91, but you were still involved with the band in the late 80s, right?
Well, that's kind of a misnomer, to be honest with you, Sid. The manager at the time was a guy named Alan Niven.
Yeah, Alan Niven, yeah.
Yeah, and not a good guy. When he finally got fired, we can get into that if you want, but when he finally got fired, he literally hired a black magic specialist from New Orleans, and every day after his work, he'd go over to that guy's house, put on a black cape and light candles and cast evil spells on Axl and I. So, anytime.
I read that in the book, Mick Wall's book that he did.
Yeah, Mick Wall's a piece of shit too. He tells me that he's going to put me on the Mount Rushmore of managers, me and Peter Grant, and then he fucks me after I gave him, a good at least 60 hours of my time, if not more. And he makes Niven look like the hero. Niven didn't know a fucking thing. Niven, it was really obvious. It was really obvious right from the beginning that Axl hated Alan. Alan hated Axl, to the point that probably the second week I was involved, I was in the back lounge with Axl, and Niven came back with a piece of paper, and Axl goes, "What's this?" He goes, "Lyrics."
Right, I've heard this story. Because he was
put him
working
out the bus mat. He put him out the bus mat and said, "You're not my Bernie Taupin. You're my manager. So fuck off. Don't ever give me lyrics again." Because Alan was more interested in producing and writing for Great White, and that's what he did. And he did a good job at it. But he didn't know nothing about touring in particular, and he knew very little about how to negotiate. He was when I met Peter Grant in '88. He said, "Doug, you're doing a great job, a fantastic job. I was just talking about you last night on BBC Radio." And I said, "Are you sure you're not talking about my partner?" This is '88, Sid, not '91.
So how did you, I guess going back a bit, how did you first get introduced to Guns N' Roses?
Well, I was selling title insurance in San Diego because I'd blown up my back on David Lee Roth. And I got a call from a couple of accountants, Richard Feldstein, who, God bless him, he just lost his son, who was the manager of Maroon 5. I didn't end up hearing what it was about. I know that he had some issues in the past, but him and his partner at the time was a guy named Barry Siegel. Barry still handles the Elvis Presley estate for Lisa Marie and Priscilla. Both of them are great guys. But they called me and said, Goldstein, good Jewish guy. I'm actually a Christian.
Yeah, he told me you're not Jewish. That was kind of, my mind was blown. I'm like, what?
Yeah. But Feldstein and Siegel, they're very Jewish. And so they said, you shouldn't be a Jewish bodyguard. You're too intelligent to do that. How would you like to tour manage? And I said, okay. And they said, what do you know about Guns N' Roses? And I was out of the music game, and they were brand new. They just released Appetite, and we're touring with the Cult. And so I said, what do I know about Guns N' Roses? I said, well, honestly, if I had my choice, I'd rather have the end of a rose stuck on my face. And they said, no, it's a band in LA. And I said, okay, well, send it to me. And when I heard Appetite, the first two songs, I swear to you, I thought they had two vocalists. I called these guys and said, that's kind of interesting. I said, they have two singers. No, same guy. I said, come on, what? So I went and interviewed and got along with the band really well, except Izzy. He thought I was a cop, thought I was a plant. My hair was short at the time. Not as short as it is now, but short at the time. And so they hired me straight away. And within, I'd say, 2 months, I was co-manager. I had an offer, $500,000 a year by John Bon Jovi to move back to New Jersey, live with him and his wife, Dorothea. And I love John. He's one of the nicest, brightest people in the business, bar none, bar none. You know, the song Runaway, I think, is one of the classic all-time rock hits. It's very anthemic. But Johnny offered me a job, and I turned it down. I was making $500 a week, but it wasn't that I saw the potential. I've never quit a job before.
Right.
And he wouldn't want it done to him. And that's what I told him. I said, hypothetically, if I was working with you and somebody offered me, you know, 1,000 times what I was making, you wouldn't want me to walk. And so I'm not going to do that.
Understandable.
Yeah,
absolutely. It ended up working out okay.
Right.
So what were your like day? Because you know, for people who aren't involved in the music industry like ourselves, like what is your day-to-day duty as like a co-manager? You were co-managing with Alan Niven, I'm guessing.
Yeah, well, again, I mean, Niven didn't do anything. I mean, by the time I got involved, which is only a couple months into it, he was very seldom involved. He was too busy writing and producing Great White, and so there became this division. Point of fact, Rich and Chris Robinson were calling me at home before they had a record deal. Black Crows, and I thought Shake Your Moneymaker was a brilliant record.
I did
so
too.
I brought it into Niven because it was his company, and in his astute way, he said, "Douglas, we're too busy with Great White and Guns N' Roses. Let's pass." so I gave it to Pete Angelis. I actually called Pete Angelis from David Lee Roth days, and I called Peter Mensch of Q Prime.
Right.
And normally I wouldn't call two Peters in a day. I like women, but I did. And Angelis took it over, and I never even got so much as a gold record out of the deal, which, you know, that's on him, not me.
Were you working with the Robinson brothers and the Crows when Arlette was working with them?
No, she came in after me.
Okay.
No, it was literally very early days. Very early days. So
back in the Atlanta days?
Very much so. Yeah, and they would call me every day. And the funny thing was, they loved Guns N' Roses, but it wasn't Slash that they liked. It was Izzy. And you can see that now. I mean, very laid
definitely.
back. Izzy was always very laid back, very cool, you know, kind of that Keith Richardsy vibe.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, Ronnie Wood vibe, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, Ronnie's always been happy letting Keith have the glory, and he just gets up and does his gig. But I'll tell you, I mean, I would love to talk to Chris and Rich at some point and just tell them, hey, great job, guys. You killed it.
Maybe you can be the missing link and get those boys talking again.
Yeah.
I'd love it, man. I'd love it because I think there's too much left to be done, particularly the way that they look at cannabis. Because one of the things that I do, I work with a company started by Rick Simpson, who did that. No, that's all right. For some reason, I went to my Bluetooth. So let me find Hangouts. Here we are.
Okay,
sorry guys. Yeah, I don't know what Bluetooth turned on, but somehow somewhere in this house I went to Bluetooth.
So
anyways, what I was saying is, you know, I work with this group, Phoenix Tears out of Colorado, and all they do is help people with cancer, epilepsy, and Parkinson's through their CBD oils. So I'd love to talk to Chris and Rich and do kind of a cannabis-based festival because I mean, clearly there's no bigger spokesperson in music than Chris Robinson.
Yeah. Maybe you can bring back, what was the tour that they did with Cypress? Was it Cypress Hill? I'm trying to remember. It was the Up in Smoke tour, I think.
Oh, is that? Well, Up in Smoke that may have been the second time. I actually was the tour coordinator for Dre's Up in Smoke tour in 2001.
Did you say the Grays?
Dr. Dre.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's the biggest hip hop tour, grossing hip hop tour in the history. At least it was at the time. I don't know what it is anymore. Not that he cares. He's got that Dre Beats money, $3 billion between him and Jimmy.
Yeah, he's not hurting.
Yeah, so we were talking about Guns N' Roses a bit. So you obviously you didn't get along with Alan Niven. So you came on, and you know what? We talked about this before on the podcast. You know, Appetite wasn't a huge hit when it first came out. It took like about a year before it started to roll. Like, I mean, did you guys think that it was over within the first year? Because I mean, Geffen, at least from the stories Tom Zutaut told, was like the band was basically they were ready to give up on Guns like within a year or so.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it wasn't my call at the time. Niven was kind of doing that, picking singles because he had experience with, I think, Island Records, something like that, or an offshoot of Island Records. But they released Jungle 3 times, 2 times before they hit Sweet Child. And I would have released Jungle and then straight into Sweet Child because I know that the receptivity of it would have been huge, which it was.
Right.
But when I mentioned it to him, he wasn't interested. And him and Zutaut secretly did a radio edit that they never told the band that they did, which I just told you. So, you know, they did it behind the back and asked me to lie about it. And I'm not real good at lying. If anybody would have asked me the direct question, I would have said no. You know, yeah, they did it. So they had Steve Thompson, who I represent. He's a producer, phenomenal producer, but they had Steve go in and do an edit on it, and that's what they used for radio without the band's knowledge. They cut out that incredible solo from Slash. And my thought is always, fuck radio. Let them do their own edit if they're going to do it, or play the whole song.
So you mean this? You mean the Sweet Child of Mine edit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember even Axl did an interview where he said he hates the edit of it.
Right. Well, you know what? I mean, if you're going to do it, then let the band do it.
Right.
Axl and Slash were bright enough that give him Steve Thompson as an engineer, who's the greatest engineer in the history of music, and tell him what you do and don't want out of it. I mean, if you would have told Axl and Slash you have this much time for it to be a radio hit, they would have worked around it, but they didn't give him that chance. We were on the road, and so they just went in with Steve Thompson, Niven, thinking that he's a brilliant engineer and knows music, and he doesn't.
Yeah. So whenever you started co-managing the band, I mean, it's been written a bunch of times, the band had other drug and alcohol problems. Like,
really? I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that either. I know. I thought you might not be, Doug. I'm just bringing it to your attention right now.
Yeah.
So I mean, like as a manager, like or as a co-manager, how do you deal with that? Like, did you think that it was going to get to the point where it would end the band, or were you guys kind of like,
No, I never thought. I mean, there were certain periods where everybody wanted to give up, particularly on Steven. I kept it going. I mean, I hit Slash in the chest with an Archon more than once, and we had a lot of issues, and I was constantly dragging him in and out of rehab, and usually it wouldn't work, and I have a theory behind that. I don't think that the AA based rehabilitation works for a guy who stands on stage and gets 22,000 people screaming that he's God.
Right.
Right.
You can't wake that person up at 5 o'clock in the morning, tell them to make their own damn bed. And it just doesn't work for somebody who's that intelligent, who goes through that process. I think that if you have a much more nurturing base with music, let them go into a studio while they're there. Don't take them completely out of their element and rip them of their dignity. It just doesn't work on people like that.
Yeah.
But,
So did you guys, I mean, well, I'll ask you this, I guess we do the Use Your Illusion tour part, but like, were you guys not concerned at all with the alcohol consumption these guys were doing? It was just more about the drugs because that was presenting more of a danger to them? Yeah.
And I grew up in a redneck part of San Diego called Lakeside, and everybody drank, including myself. Yeah. And so, at some point I really want to apologize to Duff McKagan because I was looking more at the blow and the guy he had, what was it called? Would have to take Xanax.
Those anti-anxiety pills.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, but he would like pass out from it, and so I was more interested in that and not realizing what was happening to his pancreas and other vital organs with his vodka consumption, and so I just let him stay in this pickled state, and it was a horrible thing to do. I should have just said, fuck it, stop the tour, and that's it. Because Duff McKagan is one of the nicest people on the planet, bar none. And he's a sweet kid, and he didn't deserve that. He didn't deserve that. But I kind of was overlooking it, and I don't know if it was the money necessarily. Yeah. That was the impetus. I don't think so. I've never really made money a primary motivation. It was more the fact that we were trudging along as the Partridge Family trying to get to #1 in the world.
Right. So when, all the stuff was going on and, Axl was at that Rolling Stone show and he said, basically, unless people get their act together, the band's done. Like, was there anything that Axl did behind the scenes that fans didn't see to try to get the guys to clean up?
Other than one-on-one confrontation, no, not really. I mean, he kind of left that up to me.
Yeah.
But he was my best friend and we talked, 10 times a day. It wasn't like he turned his back to it. He just trusted me to try and handle it. And every once in a while, he'd, chime in. And if I was going to do an intervention, he would show up. And I attempted it one time with Slash and didn't work. But, it just is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, so I want to talk a bit about Izzy. So Izzy was the first one to get clean. Although I've always read that Axl wasn't really into that kind of stuff, and he just was kind of doing his own thing. But like after Izzy got arrested and on that airplane, what was going on? Wizzy, yeah, that's right. So what happened behind the scenes? Like from what I understand, he drank too much. He had to go to the bathroom, but there was a lineup, or the flight attendant told him to go take a seat because of turbulence or something, and then he relieved himself in like the aisle of the plane.
Right. Yeah. I mean. Having not been on the plane, I can only tell you that Izzy was one of the sweetest people in the world. But when push comes to shove, when somebody's wronging him or others, he stands up for either them or himself.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm sure he was really fucked up. I think it was probably a combination of alcohol and junk, but knowing his MO. But he always started kind of like me. He always starts with yes, sir, no, ma'am. And I'm sure that he just got pushed and pushed and pushed. And he just, you know, at the end of the day, it's why he turned into a rock and roll star. He doesn't like authority figures who treat him like dog shit.
Right.
Right. So did you have to go visit him in prison when that happened? Or?
No. Izzy, as I said in the beginning of this, Izzy was never a big Doug Goldstein fan until I more than doubled their royalties after he's already out of the band. And he would call me and say, hey, thanks, I can buy 2 more motorcycles. But he was always close with Niven. And so that's one of the few things that Niven did. And in all fairness, I mean, look, one thing you'll find out about me, I accept culpability and I give credit where credit is due. Alan Niven factually did go to the label and say, when Eddie Rosenblatt, the record company president, said it's over, the band was at just over 100,000 units. You know, it's over. Great first record. Let's pull them off the road and record another one. Niven did ask for $35,000, $30,000. And they did Sweet Child of Mine. And that clearly launched the bands. And so Alan deserves credit on that one.
Yeah. So
there's a lot of things that he takes credit for that he didn't deserve.
So let's talk about after the incident with Izzy. Like that's, I guess, from whatever I've read, seems like that was the motivating factor for him to get clean. Did you notice a change from Izzy, like after that incident happened?
Sure. Yeah, but Izzy always kept himself, you know, whether he was fucked up or not. When we check into the hotel, you know, I would leave everybody on the bus until I got the keys, right? And so I'd wake everybody up, I'd give Izzy his key, and he'd just disappear. What time sound check, and he'd be there at sound check, whether he was sober or not.
Yeah.
You know, and I never really, I mean, he knows the public transportation system and how to utilize those in whatever city we're in. And he'd jump on a bus or train and he'd be there at sound check. So I never really had to worry about him a whole lot. He never disappointed.
Yeah, he seemed more of the explorer.
For those that don't know, no, Axl was never into drugs ever or alcohol. He's a teetotaler. Yeah, he's a teetotaler. So it wasn't like he was coming down on the other guys and getting fucked up privately. You know, maybe he'd go party at a weekend with Sebastian Bach once every 3 months. Other than that, he's a straight guy.
So did Axl ever because you guys obviously were pretty close.
Very close.
Like during those Appetite days when you were with the band, like did he start getting into a lot of the homeopathic stuff, or did that come like afterwards?
That was later. Yeah, that was later. That was between Appetite and Use Your Illusion. Then, and particularly during Use Your Illusion, you know, he brought in Dr. Steve Thaxton, who knows the human body better than anybody I've ever met, really.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the first guy that I saw to use acupuncture with electrostim. Fixed me. I tore a hamstring playing tennis in not Reykjavik, Helsinki, Finland.
Yeah.
And I thought I was going to be down for months, and that evening I was doing wind sprints up and down the hallway thanks to him.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's not just externally. He knows the inside of what to take mineral wise, and then he's a chiropractor as well, so he used to adjust Axl and give him his vitamins and whatever he needed.
So during those Appetite days, was Axl doing like vocal exercises, or he was just like
he's always done that. And you know, Sid, that's another thing that Axl doesn't like me to tell a whole lot of people, because he doesn't want to explain his art.
Right.
It's always been a great frustration for me. But you know, him showing up on late has nothing to do with him being a dickhead. He has, and I've worked for a lot of artists. He doesn't want to give the fans a bad show. So I used to call it a fear of failure, but it's not a fear of failure. It's a responsibility for the fact that you paid $27.50, now $150 for your ticket. He doesn't want to go out and hit a bad note.
Right.
So his vocal prep is about a 4-hour process. And when he screws up during that vocal prep, then he just starts again. And if that means he's going to be late, he'd rather he be late than to give you a bad show. And I respect that.
So I know what happened in Dayton in '91.
Okay. Just share. I don't remember, Jack.
I was at the Dayton show both nights in Dayton. The night that Axl sliced his hand on his microphone stand.
Uh-huh.
And the night before, they went on at about 1 o'clock.
Yeah, well, you know, shit happens, Jeff.
Yeah. Hey, it was worth it for me.
People would say, what's the biggest attraction to Guns N' Roses? It's like Half Card. People don't go see the race, they go see the crash.
Right.
You know, and the Who preceded them in that kind of mentality, although we took it to an extreme that the Who never reached. Or the Pistols, right? Pistols was the same thing. You never knew what Sid was going to do, and so, you know.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you about the recording of the GNR Lies, because you said you came in after Appetite, and of course, like, you know, for that album, I think it's it's not so much an album, it's an EP, but you know, 1 in a Million seems like that was the one song that became like a lightning rod of controversy. I personally like the song a lot. I think the demo is actually better than the original, than the studio version they put out.
Agreed.
But like, was there a lot of internal discussion within the band before they put out the actual song, or was it like, we're just gonna put it out and see what happens?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, he didn't really tell anybody what he was going to do.
Right.
Because in a number of situations, they just put down the music and then he writes lyrics to it. So they write this catchy little tune, and and he put the lyrics to it later, and never explained himself.
Do you remember Slash's immediate reaction when he said that one word?
Yeah. Oh shit! I think it was like, oh shit.
Wow.
I got some explaining to do to my mom.
Right.
My grandma. But you know, it's an interesting story, GNR Lives. I don't know if you know the derivation on how that thing all started.
No, I would love to hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we used to stay the downtown Poncha train in Detroit. And so on the David Lee Roth tour, there was this little 14-year-old girl trying to do whatever it took to get a backstage pass. And I was in charge of backstage passes. So I used to put people's initials on it. So I'd know if somebody screwed up or if somebody was underage, I'd go to the person with their initials on it and say, you're fired, or, you know, I'm going to kick your ass or whatever. And so I told everybody, you know, if anybody gives her a pass. So anyway, nobody gave her a pass. Fast forward, it's 2 years later. She's 16 now. I go to walk on the bus, and the bus driver is about 48 years old. And she's sitting in the we call it the captain's chair, the one right next to the driver. And I'm always the first guy on the bus. I said, pardon me, what's going on here? And he goes, oh, she's an old friend. It's a strike one. She's 16. Because I remember her.
Right.
Yeah.
She still didn't have any boobs, right? Poor thing. And so I said, okay, let's try this again. What is she doing on the bus? And he said, well, I'm a friend. I've been a friend of her parents for a long time. I said, now you're just lying to me. I said, you know, so I said, sweetheart, before I get to strike three and kill this guy, come with me. So we stepped off the bus, and I said, look, if you tell me the truth, I'm going to give you my pass. If you lie to me, I'll make sure you never see a show in Detroit forever, or any other city for that matter. I said, do you remember me? She said, yeah. I said, where from? She said, David Lee Roth. I said, right, yeah, I remember you too. I said, so if you tell me the truth, I'll give you my pass. You can't ride on our bus because I don't have the insurance for it, but I'll see you at the show. I'll give you your own pass, and you won't be able to go in the dressing room, but you'll have all access. She said, okay, what's up? I said, how'd you get on the bus? She said, well, I took care of him. I said, that's what I thought. So I gave her my pass. I walked on the bus, knocked the guy out, and drug him out, and I went into the bay, in the bus bay, and threw his luggage on top of him. I said, get the fuck out of here. And so he went down the street. So now I'm in the driver's seat. The band took him on the bus. This is what's going on. I said, long story, just got on the bus. So took him to sound check, and you guys will remember the first half of Paradise City, the color version where they're at Giant Stadium. We had to go from Detroit to Giant Stadium. So I work a full day. I'm on the bus, and Axel's 2 hours in the dressing room. The band is all on the bus, loaded up, ready to go. And I'm getting a little frustrated because we're kind of pushing time. And so I get the call, he's ready to leave. So I go down to the dressing room, and we're walking up, and this probably 15-year-old kid comes running up crying. And I try and avoid him, keep going. And Axel goes, Doug, stop. He goes, what's up? And the kid goes, do you have a copy of Live Like a Suicide, the original EP? And Axel said, no, I mean, those have been sold out forever. He goes, why? The kid says, well, I have everything you guys have ever done. I've got bootlegs, I've got everything, but the scalpers want $400 to $500 for that here in town. And so Axel said, get his address, make sure he gets a copy, which I did, make sure he got a copy. So we get on the bus, I fire it up, and Axel comes out from the back lounge. He goes, turn it off. Okay, why? He goes, I need to talk to you and Slash in the back. So we go to the back lounge, and I go, what's up? He goes, how the fuck do we beat the scalpers? And I said, that's a no-brainer. He goes, really? I said, well, yeah. I go, how many songs are on that EP? He goes, 5. I said, okay. I go, let's go record 5 other songs acoustically, if whatever you want. And now for $7.99 or $9.99, whatever the price is, they'll have not only the original 5, but an additional. So instead of paying $400 to $500, they get the originals plus 5 other songs. I go, you just killed them. So that's how GNR Lies came.
That's cool. Yeah, I never knew.
Marketing tool.
That's a great marketing tool.
Yeah. I come up with one good idea a year, guys. So call me next January.
So the other thing I wanted to ask you was you talked a bit about the Paradise City video. So of course, Guns play Donington. They're going to go play Donington again this year in Europe. So we heard about the two fans who passed away, unfortunately. So I thought Guns got a lot of unfair press by being blamed for those deaths, when in fact Axel was the one trying to like tell the crowd to settle down.
Yep, and step back.
Yeah, and step back,
and turn it into an acoustic performance instead of going out and playing jungle.
Yeah. So what happened behind the scenes? Like how long after did you guys learn that those two concert goers had passed away?
Well, I knew during the show. I knew what was happening.
Yeah.
But I didn't tell the guys because it particularly crippled Axel. When we got back to the hotel, David Lee Roth was staying there, and he was in the bar. And Axel said, "Can you introduce me to him? I want to talk to him." I said, "Yeah, sure." So, "Hey, Dave, this is Axel." "Hey, man, how you doing? Diamond Dave." So I sit down. So Axel says, "How do you deal with stuff like that when it happens?" He goes, "Oh, fuck, man." He goes, "You're in the UK." He goes, 10 people die every time they hold a soccer match. He goes, "Fuck it, it's rock and roll." And Axel just said, "Really?" He goes, "I'm sorry. I don't really want to sit here anymore." And he went back to his room. I mean, he was disgusted at Dave's, and I was kind of embarrassed that I introduced it to, but each to each his own, I guess. That's everybody has their own way of getting through things.
So did Axel and David Lee Roth never get along, or was that just?
Because I know about the Sebastian Bach marijuana story.
I don't know anything about that.
They were backstage in LA at some show and met Dave, and Sebastian offered, and Dave's like, "I already have my own," and they all sat down and got busy with it.
But I heard that David said that like Axel and Sebastian were like posers to the throne or something, and then he apologized afterwards, like years down the road.
Yeah. Dave was never much on humility. Point of fact, when I was working with him, he used to get fucked up and he'd want to throw kicks at me, and so I went to knock his head off one time in the elevator, and Eddie, his bodyguard, jumped in and said, "Doug, you can't hit him." I said, "Fuck you." I said, "Where I come from, if somebody continues to throw kicks at you, you knock them on their ass, and then they don't throw kicks anymore." Right?
Yeah.
Well, he pays the bills. I don't care. I'll quit. I'll go home. I don't give a shit. Right?
Yeah. So I want to also talk about the Stones show. So shortly afterwards, after the whole Izzy incident happened, actually, before the Stones, I think wasn't there the incident at MTV VMAs with Vince Neil?
Correct.
I think that was after, but yeah.
Okay.
So what ended up happening on that one was Niven took the path of least resistance because he wasn't the toughest guy in the room, and so he walked Izzy off after the Tom Petty song. Yeah. And I'm walking off with Axel, and I see up ahead of me, I see. I mean, when you're playing in those bright lights, when you walk off stage, you can't see shit.
Right.
And so Izzy was walking along with Niven, and Vince copped him. And then hauled ass. And so Axel started sprinting. So I'm following Axel, and Vince jumps into a limo and hauls ass. And then he's calling Axel a pussy in the press, right?
Yeah.
And so Axel called me, goes, "Hey, Doug," he goes, in Malaysia, you can fight to the death. He goes, I don't want to publicize it. Just call Doc McGee, because I was friends with Doc, Motley's manager, and tell him that I'll put up whatever I have, and Vince will put up whatever he has, and we'll go fight to the death. So I did, and Doc said, "I don't think Vince is going to go for that." I said, "Well, then tell him to shut his mouth." And he didn't. And I actually had Don King, the boxing promoter, call me. He wanted to, put it on pay-per-view. It was pretty fun.
Yeah. So it never actually got really close to happening, I guess, the fight between Axel and Vince.
No, look, Vince is all mouth. I don't care if he grew up a Hispanic kid. He didn't want. Axel's got 2 tons of crazy going on, and Vince knows that. And crazy beat Trump's, skill a lot of times. I've seen it myself.
So I think Axel would have whooped his ass. I still think Axel would have whooped his ass.
I think Axel would have whooped his ass.
He'd have killed him. It wouldn't have been a fight because, like I said, crazy outweighs skill.
I know people like that.
I've done it myself.
I have friends that the coolest cucumber, and the second you stab them in the back, or the second you cross them, they do a 180.
That's kind of my rap too, Jeff.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
I'm kind of like that too, so I get it. But yeah, I could see Axel tearing Vince limb for limb even to this day.
So did Axel and Vince ever get along like before that incident? Because I know Guns toured with Motley.
No,
really.
But I had some ownership in that. If you're going to open for a band, my thought is go out and kill them. You're there for a reason.
Yeah.
I don't say shake hands and kiss babies. I always say shake babies and kiss hands. And so I would tell the band every night, you've got a job to do. We're out here. Go wipe up the stage with these guys, walk off and shake their hand and say, hey, have a great night.
Right.
But we killed them. I mean, they might as well tore their spandex off on stage because, you know, all those bands that were wearing spandex went bye-bye, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So then that takes us to their Stones gigs. They play those 4 shows with the Stones. So before Axl made that speech, I can't remember if it was the first night or second night. Did you guys know he was going to make that speech about the band breaking up?
No clue. It was the first night. Yeah, that was the same night that he had some interesting remarks for Living Color.
Yeah. So I remember the guy from Living Color, what's his name?
Vernon Reid.
Vernon Reid, yeah, he went on. Didn't he make some statement on stage about about Axl Rose?
It was the 1 in a million reference. You know, Axl's a racist scumbag, and what Axl's bodyguard is my buddy Earl Gabadon, who's about as African American as it gets. I mean, Axl doesn't have a prejudice on his body. The story behind 1 in a million was literally supposed to be about all the preconceived notions he had as a redneck growing up in West Lafayette, Indiana, arriving in Los Angeles, and how wrong those were. But, you know, I used to beg Axl to explain it, and he just said, no. You know, Picasso doesn't explain his paintings, and so why am I going to explain my art?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess how did he meet Earl? Because I know Earl did bodyguard duty for like Guns for a long time.
Through me. I had done security with Earl and John Reese in the Phoenix area when I was going to college in Flagstaff. And so I brought Earl in, I brought Reese in. Big mistake on my part, bringing Reese in, but that's another story.
So Earl used to be like a football player, wasn't he?
Yeah, he played for the Denver Gold. He had a tryout with the Minnesota Vikings, but he's one of the sweetest men in the world. Jamaican born, raised in New York. Just lost his mother about the same time I lost mine. I still talk to Earl quite a bit. He's just a gentle giant.
Yeah. Was there any times that he went Terminator on anybody that you can remember?
You know, the one thing I do remember about Earl, because he's such a big guy, he doesn't really have to fight that often. But he's a badass. I mean, he's good in martial arts. He does yoga to keep his flexibility. But when I was young, I saw these 2 guys get a fight, and I don't know what he did to break it up, but he was literally carrying them out like a couple of 12-packs. I mean, walking out with these guys' belts, right? He's just cruising along. I was like, wow, what happened there?
So I guess when you guys like work with Axl so closely, or I guess any of the band members for that matter of fact, did you guys actually have like a personal relationship, or was it all like business? Like would Axl ever call you like, hey, we should go get a burger or something or hang out?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, everybody in the band. I mean, we're a family. Literally, when I made the Partridge Family comment early on, I honestly thought that we didn't know how big we were until we came off the road. And everybody's going, you're the biggest band in the world. Like, we are? We're looking around. I mean, you know, we're staying in nicer hotels, and now we have a jet. But we didn't really know how big we were until we came off the road.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess speaking of how big you guys were, I mean, opening for the Stones, you talked a bit about what happened between Living Color and Axl. So did Axl and Living Color exchange words backstage? What exactly happened?
No, they weren't going to say anything.
Yeah.
He's too crazy. They're not going to say anything.
So was the idea to keep them as separated as possible, or to just both avoid each other?
I mean, it wasn't by design on our part, but the tour manager for the Stones, he made sure that the dressing rooms were pretty far apart, or the production manager.
Okay.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask, so what goes through your mind when you hear that speech from Axl? Like, unless people get their act together, the band's going to be over.
Donuts. He quit. I mean, he was done. And so myself and Alan Niven, and he didn't like Alan, but he was there for whatever reason. I think just, you know, I don't know why. But anyway, we picked up a bunch of donuts and we went to Shoreham Towers where Axl was living, and we sat there in the dark and listened to him. You know, fuck those guys. I'm not going to watch my family fucking die in front of me, and I'd rather just quit. And he was serious. I mean, he was done. He wasn't going to
understandable.
Be with the band anymore. Yeah. It was absolutely a stand, and it wasn't the first time. I mean, I got into it with Slash. Slash died in San Francisco after a Metallica gun show outside of an elevator, 3:00 in the morning. I get a call. He's dead. And so he's hit with an Archon, and they take him away, and he comes back, and he tells myself and Ronnie Stallnaker, his bodyguard, who we used to call Slash on steroids, looked just like him, only big, and John Reese and Earl Gabadon. And he tells me that when I say, dude, you got to stop. This is it. No more. He tells me to go F myself, that he's going to do whatever he wants to do, and it's none of my effing business. And I did $75,000 in damage to his room, and I quit. And I quit. I was done, and I went home.
Didn't he score again that night? Isn't that how the story goes?
I don't know.
No, I think in his book he said he died, then he checked out of the hospital the same day, and there was a show the next night or something.
Yeah. Well, no, there wasn't a show the next night. No, that's wrong. I mean, but he doesn't remember. I love reading his book, right? Because it's like he was so high and drunk during that entire day. I don't know where he fantasized about some of the stuff that's in there. But no, we had a show the following Saturday, and that was like on a Thursday. We're supposed to play the Rose Bowl. And so they woke up Axel, told him what happened with me. And Axel said, really? Then tell him I quit unless he makes up with Doug. And then Axel left. So Friday morning, Slash comes to my door in east of Mission Viejo, a place called Cody de Casa, and in a limo, and says, what do I have to do? And I said, you got to go to rehab as soon as this leg's done. Okay, I'll do it. So, and I'm sorry. I said, that's all I ever need to hear. Just apologize. I mean, don't tell me you're going to die and not care, because it's us that you're leaving behind, and I love you, and so don't do that to me.
Yeah. And so did he ever end up going to rehab after that?
Yeah, it didn't succeed. You know, he was a real tricky guy. I mean, you know, if it wasn't hiding balloons in his shoe or in his Marlboro box, and I figured that stuff out pretty early on, then he'd have somebody show up. You know, like I had him clean for 4 days in Hawaii in '88. And he brings in some porn star from Canada, and she brought it in for him. And I knew I'm not a dumb guy.
I guess, like, I think, who did I ask? I think I asked Teddy this. So is it stressful having to deal with all this stuff? It's got to be.
Yeah.
Oh, just a touch.
Like,
I mean, you know,
all the days work.
Sid, things happen. Like I get a call one day from Erin Everly. They're renting a home in the Hollywood Hills, and she says, Doug, you need to get up here. What's going on? And I used to get these calls almost every day.
Oh my God.
I said, what's up? She goes, well, he's pushed the grand piano through the picture window that faces the valley, the hills, Hollywood Hills. I'm thinking, I guarantee you that Doc McGee and Peter and Cliff and Irving Azoff, they've never had to do this. No way. Right?
Yeah.
So I show up and I'm looking at it, and yeah, it's half off. Right? It's hanging out a window and it's ready to fall, and the house is below. And I'm thinking, all right, this is interesting. What am I going to do here? And you know, so I called the crane company, and they came and they had to pull it back into the house, and I had to call a window company, and they had to put the big picture window. Yeah. And I got to do it, by the way. I got to do it before CNN, KTTV, Channel 11 in LA, and anybody else find out. Which means I got to do it before people start coming home from work.
Right.
So I got to quit
now.
I got to quit.
So, Doug, at any point, are you like, I don't need this shit, I'm just going to quit, like having to get phone calls like this every day?
No.
No.
All in a day's work.
Yep, pretty much.
Wow.
You got to open it. I got to hold the phone. Yeah, no, I mean, no, I never wanted to quit. The only time I wanted to quit was the time I told you about with Slash, because that's watching somebody that you love die. And I'll go to the end of the earth for you, but if you tell me that you're going to give up, then kiss my ass, because you're not caring about the people that you're leaving behind, who are working their asses off for you every damn day and making you, you know, one of the most recognized guitar players in the history of music.
Yeah, so I wanted to get back to the Stone story. So you took some donuts to Axel's place with Alan Niven. Like, how did you convince him to play the following shows?
You know, I don't remember, Sid. It was just kind of talking sense to him. You know,
sure, yeah.
let me do my job. You know, I'll get the guys in rehab. Just don't give up on me. Don't quit. You guys are so close. You know, you've always wanted to be in the position that you're in currently, and you're right there. You're just about to be one of the biggest singers in the history of music. Don't quit now, right? But it was me talking. It wasn't Alan. I mean, yeah. You know.
So
and that's the thing that's frustrating is you know, Niven sits back and he's the grand poobah and great orchestrator of this fucking career, and that's a joke. It's a fucking joke. And Stephanie Brownstein, who stayed with Alan until, and I told her, I said, if you want to stay with Alan, you can stay with Alan. If you want to come with me, come with me. And I kept him involved for 2.5 fucking years. That Axel would say he's fired. No, he's not fired. He's my partner. You can't fire him. And then I'd get Slash's support, and Slash would call Axel and say, look, we're going to have to write him a big check if you do it. Until such time that Niven was, and I used to tell him all the time, don't get fucked up with Slash. He doesn't respect it, because Slash would tell me. So I call, never mind the why, but actually that's it. I'm getting my car. I'm driving until it runs out of gas. I'll have a job at that gas station. And this is after I've sold all the tickets on Here's Your Listen to.
Yeah.
So Niven had gone up to Slash's house, and Slash's then fiance, Renee, they were all doing ecstasy and blow together and drinking. and Renee's in the restroom, and Niven comes in and with his unit in his hand and says, "I bet you'd like some of this." And so that was it. Slash said, "You know what? Fuck him. Write him a check." So the famous words of Austin Power when I walked into to Niven's office is, "I can't protect you anymore. You got to go. How much do you want?" $3 million. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll get that checked. You want it? Should I write it personally? Or
So when Axel talks about quitting the band, did he actually have any idea of what he wanted to do if he ever quit the band, or just kind of like, I'm going to quit and see what happens?
Well, yeah, he was going to get a job at a gas station. He was going to drive his little convertible BMW, and when he ran out of gas, he was going to work there. Yeah, he was dead serious. I mean, that's the funny thing about Axel. Once he said, he's kind of like me that way. Once I set my mind to something, I'm going to do it, and that's what he was going to do. So
after the Stones gigs, I guess they get in the studio to write the next album, which would have been Use Your Illusion, but of course
there was the Sympathy for the Devil thing in there, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, that was wasn't that like the mid '90s, and then
no, Niven was still involved, because then they went and performed Sympathy with the Devil with the Rolling Stones on their pay-per-view.
Salt of the Earth, right?
Salt of the Earth.
Yeah.
Salt of the Earth.
Oh, was that it? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Salt of the Earth. So were you involved at all with getting Axel and Izzy to guest star with the Rolling Stones on stage?
No, that was a Niven thing because he's a big kiss ass when it comes to Stones, and so he wanted to go there, and Alan went to Axel's room to try and get him to go to sound check because he was late.
Yeah,
and Axel fired him on the spot. I had to go cover his ass with Great White while he did that. And boy, what a great job he did. He got fired. So
when they start going to record the next album with Steven, of course, there's all these issues with Steven. Like looking back at everything that happened, could you guys have even done anything different? Because I mean, it seemed like you could try to get Steven help, but just nothing seemed to work.
No, there was really nothing to do with Steven. I mean, Slash had his stuff going on, but he had it in moderation and could work. In the words of Keith Richards, when Axel did show up on stage, "Where the fuck were you? I passed out in a chandelier last night at 4:00 and I'm here."
Yeah.
Slash was kind of the same animal.
Right.
You know, he did his job, even though he had his vices, but Steven was literally passing out on the kit and couldn't perform at all. And Steven says, well, it was because of the drugs that he was taking to not do heroin, and that's not true. That's not true.
So when Slash did the interview and said he was finding stuff behind Steven's toilet and under the sink,
yeah,
it was true.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
I mean, you know, but that's like the pot calling the kettle black.
Right.
I mean,
I agree. So at the end of the day, would you say that the holdup for the Illusions albums was Steven being the anchor?
Oh yeah, no question. And we give him a year to try and get clean. And I've got him in and out of different rehab. There's a famous story of the Orange Tree Resort in Scottsdale where I had taken Steven. I was going to take both him and Slash. Somebody tipped Slash off. He wasn't at the house when I showed up there. And we get on the airplane, and the stewardess says, "Hey, are you guys ready for the trip?" Steven screamed at the top of his, "No, we're all going to die. The plane's going to go down." So they threw us off the plane. And I told Steven, "If you even open your mouth, I'm going to snap your neck in two." So we made it there, and then Slash ends up turning up, and they're going to arrest him. He starts naked, and I tell Earl to go get my briefcase with $50,000 and I start bribing people. You know, and in Slash's book, he says that Danny Zalisco, the promoter in Phoenix, helped him. Danny wasn't even there. He wasn't even there. Slash has this reticence to give me credit for whatever reason, and I know why. And instead, I think I told you, but the most famous date in the band's history is July 5 of '93.
Yeah, the Barcelona gig. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you know, Niven convinces Slash and Duff, and they still believe it to this day, that I went to Axel's room and he told me if they don't give me my name back, the Guns N' Roses name, then I'm not going on. People are going to die. And then he tells him that I wrote it up with Lori Soriano, delivered it to Slash and Duff at sound check, and they signed away their life. And the reality is that my son was born, Jake. He was born on July 5th, '93. I wasn't even on the same continent. I was in California.
Right.
So, but you know, the band either they don't know that, don't remember it, or choose to not remember it for whatever reason, and put that on me. And it was John Reese. I didn't even know it was happening. I had no clue because my wife had an intensive labor a couple of days before. We were at the hospital for a couple of days. I didn't even know what was going on. So And I'm not a dumb guy.
You feel like you were used as a scapegoat, essentially.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and Jeff, I'm not a dumb guy. I mean, the reality is that would be signing under duress. You might as well wipe your tail with that contract because and they didn't have legal representation.
Wasn't it the rumor that Axel was sitting with a shotgun or something backstage waiting for them to do it under duress? That didn't happen.
No, that would have meant he was at the stage on time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's like
I vaguely remember reading something about that as a teenager.
No, that's like Barry Fay saying he put a gun on Axel to get him to go back on stage. Give me a break. I mean, God bless, God rest Barry Fay, but
that's the Denver story, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And I can handle anything, but don't lie.
Right.
Lie. I mean, I don't care if you tell me you slept with the Houston Rockets starting lineup when Olajuwon was playing with them. Just tell me the truth.
So I think it was Lars Ulrich who essentially spread that rumor. So that wasn't the truth in Denver, correct?
Oh, gee, Lars spread a rumor? How unusual.
So I wanted to ask you, Doug, I guess going back to the 80s, this is a rumor I've always wanted to know if it was true or not.
Sure.
So was Axel a fan of Depeche Mode?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so, that's a lie. Look, I mean, Personal Jesus. I mean, that's a great tune, man. How are you not a fan of that song, Personal Jesus? Right?
I mean, heck, even Johnny Cash covered that tune.
Right. Yeah. I mean, look. Dave Kahn, the guy who's brilliant. I'd love to meet him at some point. He's just a classic songwriter.
So is it true? Because those guys are vegetarians. So there was a rumor that Axel took them to the club, the Cat House, and he allegedly shot a pig or something at a barbecue, and they got so pissed off, and they put out like a press release saying they were appalled by the.
I wasn't there. If that happened, I can't.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious. I heard that rumor. I'm like, oh, that seems like an odd story.
I heard Axel introduced himself to the band by quoting some of their lyrics.
Yeah, like the song "Somebody." That's what it was.
Yeah, I don't know that one either. But I will factually tell you, Axel's way too nice. If he would have known that they were vegans, he never would have done that in a million years. He's a very sensitive, caring, loving guy who's incredibly misunderstood. And I do want to talk about one thing in Slaski's book, where it says Dougie, which is what they used to call me. I've never been called Dougie by anybody in my life other than everybody in the band. So Dougie used to put us at these golf resorts so that he could golf in the morning. Well, the reality is I would tee off at 5:30 when the rabbits were still yawning, so that I'd be done by 8, and they haven't even gone to bed yet, right? And I had my phone with me at all times, and I had a radio with me at all times because I golfed at the golf. The reality is, I figured out if I put them at these resort out of town, who's going to score heroin on the 15th hole? Right. That's why I put them out there. It wasn't self-serving at all.
Yeah.
So I look at the stuff in the book, and I just go, "Geez, give me a fucking break."
So I wanted to ask, we talked about Steven a bit. So were there any other drummers that tried to audition for Steven's role that maybe we don't know about?
No. I mean, Axel kind of left that one up to Slash and Duff because they were writing the majority of the music at the time.
Yeah.
Izzy would certainly bring in some of his stuff, found a head and arm in a garbage can, which actually happened at A&M.
Right.
He went to throw away his cigarette butt, and there it was, arm and head and arm. But because they were writing most of the music, Axel kind of left that decision up to them, and they went to see the Cult. And they went, "Oh, that's the guy." So I mean, no, to the best of my knowledge, the best of my remembrance, I don't.
The one name I did hear is that Martin Chambers from the Pretenders audition, but they didn't like his drum kit.
That's right. Yeah, Martin Chambers. I mean, there was a whole series of people that came in and out the door during that whole thing. I was just trying to keep everybody alive. So Axel, I think Axel brought in Martin Chambers. A Moby at one point. The EDM guy. Yeah,
in like the late 90s, I read that he was involved with Axel.
Came in kind of as a producer hat. But that, I mean, he came in, I think, from what I remember, I think Moby came in during trying to find the right producer on Use Your Illusion. And one guy who I love is Steve Lillywhite, who does the Stone stuff. He just did the new U2 record, which I haven't heard yet, I have to confess. Yeah. But I don't think very many people have heard it. But Steve and we were laughing a couple of years ago when I talked to him. He said, Doug, he goes, "I passed on Your Illusion." I said, "No, I remember. I wasn't going to bring it up. I wasn't bring it up." He goes, "That's the one thing that I kicked myself in the ass about." I said, "Well, we didn't do that well with it."
So you brought up U2. I know Axel and Bono were kind of hanging out during the Illusions tour. Was there ever was it true that they were eventually going to tour at some point together?
No, what happened was Axel came to me and he said, "Hey, look, it was Pearl Jam had just broke. They released 10, and 10 was on fire." And we were at I was at a concert hut in Tel Aviv, Israel. We were playing there. And Axel had come to me in the morning and he said, hey, look, I don't care if we open. I don't care if we don't get paid. I want to do a show or a couple shows with us, Pearl Jam, U2 closing. Can you please call everybody? I said, sure. So I called Paul McGinnis from U2. He was in. Absolutely, Doug. That would be great. You know, we'll talk about who's going to headline. I said, no. Axel's already said he wants you guys to close. So let's take that one off. And we were bigger than U2 at the time. But Axel, it wasn't about who's going to close. And it wasn't that Axel wanted to kick their ass. He just wanted to do this show. Right. And so I called Kelly Curtis in Seattle, who manages or managed Pearl Jam. I don't know if he still does, but he managed Pearl Jam at the time. And I've got a finger in my ear because the music's going on. I'm at a Quonset hut in Tel Aviv, and he has me on speakerphone. I said, Kelly, could you please pick up? No. Kelly, I need to talk to you. It's kind of important. Yeah, I don't care. What do you want? Kelly, I can't hear. I'm at a Quonset hut. I don't care. What do you want, Doug? So I told him, he goes, no, we're going to pass. I said, okay, hang on a second. I go, you know, I manage guns, and when an idea comes to me, I usually talk to the band, and then I get back to I go, are you speaking on behalf of the band? He goes, yeah, we're going to pass. I go, don't you have like a moral, ethical responsibility to at least discuss it with the band? Don't fucking tell me my fucking job. Okay, and nice talking to you. Yeah. You have a great life.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
it's a shame that never happened.
There couldn't have been a venue big enough to hold all three of those bands.
So was it similar, like whenever, because I know Axel wanted Nirvana to open for the Guns and Metallica tour. Right. Like when you talked to, I imagine, did you ever talk to?
He didn't go at it that hard.
He didn't go at it that hard. Okay. So you guys never talked to Nirvana's manager it was more of just in the press, and then Kurt was bashing Guns.
Well, yeah, that wasn't a Kurt thing as much as it was a Courtney driven thing. And that comes from the VMAs, right? He's walking by with Stephanie. And Courtney says, hey, look, it's Asshole Rose. Hey, Asshole Rose, what are you doing, Asshole Rose? I'm thinking, oh, God, help, please. I know it's not going to end up pretty. Yeah. And so he walked over, and Kurt was sitting there. And Axel loved Nirvana. He told the rest of the band, the GNR guys, you got to listen to this. It's the future music. And they didn't like it. So I don't care what they say today. I lived it, and I was sober, right? So I know what happened.
Right.
So we walk up, Kurt and Courtney are sitting there, and she goes, what do you want, Asshole Rose? And he goes, Kurt, he goes, you need to shut your trap's mouth. He goes, because if you don't, I'm going to take it out on you. I was like, oh, shit. So, you know, and then he's beating on the dressing room door, and they're all hiding inside. And then the bass player, Kurt Novoselic, whatever his name is, goes on stage, and he's talking shit. It's like, you know what? I mean, I'm not a big fan because I grew up kind of fighting. And so I'm not a big fan of somebody who's a wimp in front of you, and then they go shoot their mouth off in front of a crowd.
Yeah.
Especially when you're 6'8" or however tall the guy is. I mean, he missed his calling. He should have played for the Seattle Supersonics, you know.
So I wanted to ask, because I mean, you were still managing Guns when Kurt passed. What was Axel's reaction when Kurt passed? Because there was all that bad blood between Guns and Nirvana.
Didn't matter. He knew that Kurt was a fellow tortured artist. He was very upset, despondent, and I'll tell you, and I don't know if it's in Duff's book or not, but Duff rode on an airplane back from Los Angeles the day before he comes up.
Right after Kurt.
And Duff has some PTSD around the fact that he didn't just hug him and say, come with me, don't go to your house. But
there was an effort to do so, but by the time he turned around, Kurt was gone.
Well, it wasn't that strong of an effort, it was an afterthought.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was an afterthought, but you know, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. So.
Right. With all, you know, the tortured musician and artist thing, how well did you adapt to or have to have empathy for Axel's mood swings, Axel's view on the world where it can go from 0 to 60 in a second?
I had lived it. I had lived it with my own brother, who's a genius manic depressive, who attempted suicide a number of times. And so it wasn't that foreign to me. I was just reliving my childhood, basically. He was my best friend. He was born, Axel was born 6 years later, but born the day after my brother. So the Aquarian tortured genius manic depressive, I shared a room with that guy for 14 years. That was my brother.
Right.
So it made me more empathic. You know, I certainly understood it. I was the one who would get the phone call at 2, 3, 4 in the morning that Axel was not doing. I'll just leave it at not doing well. and I'd have to be the guy to go sit with them, and for sometimes days at a time.
So when Axel was going through all this heavy psychotherapy, were you the guy taking him to and from?
No.
Okay.
No. No. Towards the end there, at one of the people, Sharon, at her request, I had to give away half of my income to her. You know, I mean, it's just, it is what it is. I don't know whether she was right or wrong. I don't really care. It's kind of irrelevant. You know, we all choose our own path on who we're going to work with and not. And I never really, I brought it up a couple of times to Axel. I questioned the validity of the person that he was working with. And when I was handed my head back to me, I thought, you know what, it's not my money, until it became my money.
Right.
Yeah. So do you know how Axel ended up hooking up with like Sharon and like these other people?
Through Susie London. And I love Susie. Susie does good work. She actually does really good work. I don't know why she put him into that one. I think there was a backhanded deal where she was getting paid as well from Axel spending them. I don't know that for a fact. It's just speculation.
Yeah. So Susie toured with you guys on the User Illusion tour, right? She was with you guys like on all the shows and worked with Axel. Okay.
Not all the shows, but she was there for a lot of the shows.
Okay.
He would bring her out and he would work with her, and that was part of, you know, what he did after the shows.
Was he like, she on call like 24/7 for him?
Not 24/7, but, you know, I mean, he realizes she has a life and she has other people that she works with, and he's a very respectful person. Like I said, Jeff, he's. It's really part of my great frustration is that nobody knows Axel like I know Axel. Even his own bandmates, they don't know Axel like I know Axel.
So
he's a great guy.
Did you notice an improvement in the way he was dealing with things and, you know, just everyday stress everybody deals with, like working with these people, or was it?
No. I mean, you know, he felt like he was doing better, and so, but then he would get frustrated and pissed off at them, and it was a great frustration for me. But as I said, I had addressed what I thought in a very stern, strong manner, my own observations. And you either choose to accept other people's observations or don't. And it's his money and his time. And so, you know, because the guys in the band would say, you know, it's this or that, and you need to tell him. I've already done that. You know, he's made his own decision. I'm not going to continue to address and beat a dead horse. No pun intended. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
Do you think that, like, as the entourage grew and the budget grew and everything else, it was just layers to the cake that Axel just didn't want to fuck with, and that just added to his stress and his bullshit? Or do you think that was more something you absorbed?
He added those layers, Jeff. But I'm a firm believer it was detract the attention away from himself. You know, It goes back to what I mentioned about him as a performer. If there's horn players and background singers and all that going on, then it deviates the attention away from just him being the primary focus.
Right.
Because every band in the history of music, it comes down to lead guitar player singer, right?
Right.
With rare exception. I mean, there's a couple exceptions. You know, if you got ZZ Top, it's kind of the whole band, but they
maybe Primus.
Yeah, right. Or Iron Maiden. It's more about Eddie than about Dickinson, right? Honestly.
Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to ask, this kind of goes before the Illusions records, was the 1990 the American Music Awards, where Duff and Slash were like clearly wasted. They go up on stage. I love this because
they were sober.
They were sober. Yeah, they were super sober.
They were good actors. They were good actors. You know, the interesting thing about that, yet again, Niven wants to be on camera next to Slash and Duff, so he sticks me with Jack Russell from Great White, and I think Michael Lardy. Anyway, two of the guys from Great White, and I know what's going to happen. So I go up to Dick Clark, and because I know him, and Larry Klein, his stage manager. And I said, guys, look, you may not want to call the guys out. They've been drinking and they're not going to get any more sober. No, Doug, if they win, we have to ring them up. I said, I'm telling you, I can't be with them right now. That's Alan Niven, my then partner. Yeah. So he's sitting with them. I'm not. And so I can't, you know, if I was sitting with him, I'd take the booze away. He's not going to do that. He's going to drink with him.
Right.
So I'm telling you, you don't want him up there. And so, yeah, they came on F this and F that. And then they called him back. They had another award.
Yeah, I love that.
I went to him again and said, just please let them go home. They want to go eat. Let them go eat. No, Doug, if they win, Mr. Clark, I'm telling you, they're not getting any more sober as the evening progresses. Yeah. Please. And Dick Clark was a good man, by the way. You know, nobody knows this about him, but every single day, no matter how busy he was, he pulled out at lunchtime and went home and made lunch for his dad and then went back to work.
Oh, nice.
What a great guy. What a great guy.
So did Axel ever talk about like his reaction to that whole award show? Did they find it funny?
I think he probably laughed.
Yeah.
He just realized certain things add to the lore. And, you know, Mr. Clark, I'm telling you, it's not going to get, they're not getting any more sober as the evening progresses. Please. And Dick Clark was a good man, by the way. You know, nobody knows this about him, but every single day, no matter how busy he was, he pulled out at lunchtime and went home and made lunch for his dad and then went back to work.
Yeah.
you know, of the band. So
do you feel that Axl just eventually let go of the reins in the sense of like, well, if I can't control them, I might as well just, you know, let somebody else deal with it?
No, he never stopped pressuring me to get them clean and sober. He never stopped, ever. He was adamant about it because he loves them. Probably the biggest thing I ever did for that band, by far, I would say, is not letting Axl know their feelings towards him.
Okay.
So I wanted to, the other thing I wanted to ask, so after that whole show, did you get like a ton of calls from producers from ABC and Dick Clark Productions? No,
it was. No, I went up to Dick Clark afterwards.
You warned him.
Trying to leave, and he stopped me. He goes, and I said, "Whoa, sir, stop! I warned you. You made your own decision. Please don't put that back on me." He goes, "You know what?" He said, "You're right. It's nice seeing you, Doug."
Yeah.
Thanks. You too, Mr. Clark. No, I never heard anything. But you know, I'm sure you know this, guys, but there was no 5-second rule prior to that.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah. I heard because of that, didn't they start the 5-second rule?
Yeah. Because of Slash primarily.
Yeah.
They started the 5-second rule. So and it still exists today, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, except the Super Bowl.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I wanted to also ask, were you in the studio a lot with them, Doug, like when they were recording the Illusions records?
Not much. If they would call me up, then I'd come in, but they never really asked for my musical opinion. Every once in a while they would. But I kind of left them alone and I mean, what am I going to tell Guns N' Roses on what to do musically? Right?
Yeah.
It's like Mike Klink. I love Mike. He's one of my favorite people, but he was an engineer for REO Speedwagon.
Yeah.
And he gets the producer seat. That was the first time he'd ever produced. But you know, I mean, when you produce those guys, it's easy. You just twist knobs. You let them go.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't do what Steve Thompson has done with Korn by writing "Freak on a Leash" for Jonathan. You know, you don't do what Steve Thompson did with Madonna writing "Like a Virgin," or with Whitney Houston, or you know, the whole Tesla thing that he did, or even Metallica and "Justice for All." That was Steve Thompson had a lot to do with some of the music that's in there.
Yeah.
But we didn't need that with GNR, and that was prior to me. So, you know, I certainly can't take credit for it. Mike did a good job.
So was it easier being a manager when they're in the studio and not on the road getting into trouble in terms of day-to-day stuff?
No, not really. I mean, I used to get phone calls, like actually coming from the parking lot and say, "Have you heard this song, Locomotive? Have you heard this song, Coma? Try and write lyrics to that."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he played me. He had a little DAT player in his car. You know, I hooked him up with something with Howard that did stereos to the stars. So actually, I had $30,000 stereo in his $25,000 car. Right?
I want one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So one thing I know, this is before the reunion happened, but I know Axl said in a couple of interviews that he shouldn't have been touring on the Illusions tour after. So like, so why would he go? What was the whole reason for why he didn't think he should be on tour?
Well, I mean, because he had his own demons that he was dealing with, and certainly the rest of the guys did. You know, Slash used to quit about once a week.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. All the time, he'd come to my room, fuck it, I'm out of here, and I'd go, well, okay. So just realize something. We just played in front of 225,000 people here in Rio, right? Now you're knocking on my door, telling me you're going home, which is okay. I just negotiated a deal for you to play here and earn $3.5 million that you're going to split up equally with your guys, right? Yeah. They paid all the production costs, so instead of the $3.5 million split basically 4 ways after Izzy left, so instead of that, you're going to go play the Cat House, and so just realize that the take home is going to be a little bit different. So, you know, sell your Viper and sell your house, and you know, you can move into a double wide mobile home with Fred Durst. And by the way, that's no knock on Fred, but when I was working with Fred, he was living in maybe even a single wide. And I loved that Olympus record. Loved the first.
I remember an interview with Fred. He's sitting in this backyard in front of this huge castle. And now that, okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, I got screwed on that. I was supposed to manage Fred. And John Reese was managing Ross Robinson. I was supposed to be managing Ross, but John, because I was paying John a ton of money, and he was supposed to sign him to me. And so I'm talking to Fred every day, a couple times a day, because I loved the first record. I thought it was brilliant.
So what do you think of Fred's claim that he tried to get Axl and Slash together?
I don't know. I don't know. That would have been post Doug. But that's when he was working as an ARR guy at Interscope. So it very well could have happened. I don't know. But so anyway, I mean, this is before they had a deal even. And Jordan Schur was somebody who wasn't yet in the music industry, really. He had a checkbook. And John Reese came in and said, look, if they sign with Jordan Schur, we're out. I said, do you really want me to tell Fred that? He said, yeah, tell him that. So I called Fred and I said, hey, Fred, look, don't shoot the messenger. But I'm telling you that Ross Robinson and John Reese are pulling out if you sign with Jordan. So about 4 hours later, Fred calls me back and tells me to F off, and Ross and John, that Jordan just gave him a check for $75K and he's going to take it. I said, whoa, I told you, don't shoot the messenger. He said, fuck off, Doug. So I step into Reese's office and go, hey, thanks a lot. I just got fired by Fred. He goes, oh, gee, sorry. He calls Fred as soon as I leave the office and goes, I don't know what Doug's on. I never told him that. So him and Ross end up doing the record. They make millions. Fred makes millions. And I'm the one holding the bag. Hey, thanks, John.
Yeah, it seems like a tricky business to be in.
It is.
Well, yeah. When you deal with people that lack integrity and morality, yeah. I try not to deal with those people, which is why I never lived in LA. I always lived down in Laguna.
Right. So I also wanted to ask you, Doug, we talked about the Illusions album. So around that time, is that when you sort of started to see like Izzy sort of drift away from the rest of the band, like go back to Indiana?
Yeah. I mean, he had originally come to Los Angeles to try and avoid working with Axl.
Yeah.
And so, he ended up with him and loves Axl as a friend, but some of the antics was not showing up and leaving the band on stage and that kind of stuff. Izzy really wanted to be the biggest club band in the world. He didn't want to be the biggest arena or stadium band. And so once it got big and weird, it messed with his head. And the final straw was, I think it was Mannheim, Germany, somewhere in Germany, where they locked us in and wouldn't let the wives out. And I had to convince them to at least let the wives out because Axl had left the stage. Sebastian Bach's on the side of the stage going, let me sing.
Yeah.
Guys, go away. No. And so, it just got weird. And that was the last straw. Izzy was like, that's it. I'm out.
So what was it that set Axl off in Mannheim? Because I remember the story that, Axl was trying to leave and they wouldn't let him leave.
I don't remember, but, Sid, usually it was like a bottle gets thrown and it lands next to him or hits him.
Yeah.
Or like in Lisbon, Portugal, it was a half stick of dynamite that landed right next to him and blew up. And, and oddly enough, the only way I got him to go back, because I was the one that had to walk with him back to the dressing room and figure it out. And so after I'd eaten 2 pizzas and didn't say a word, I realized that I'd eaten 2 pizzas and why I had ballooned on the tour. My manifestation of stress is through eating. Yeah. So he says, what do you think? And the band's playing Wipeout or whatever. So I can hear them in the distance, right? They're playing whatever they can because I told them just keep playing until I figure it out. Yeah. So Axl says, so what do you think? I go, pardon me? What do you think? I said, really? I get to share? Shut up, Doug. What do you think? I said, well, first I want to say happy anniversary. And I just pulled this one out of my tail and it was true. I just sat there while he was talking. I remembered it was a year to the day we were in St. Louis. Oh, okay. Yeah. I go, well, first off, I want to say happy anniversary. He goes, what? I go, yeah, exactly a year ago today. We were in St. Louis and they tore down that building and I saw grown men that I had hired cry while you were on your way to Chicago. So this is different. Now we're in a foreign country, but we're going to die. And maybe some of the people that I hired. And so I think maybe we should go back and finish the show. Sure enough, he did. So
yeah.
But
so
you gotta be quick on your feet and think, and find an opening in the door that allows him the opportunity to walk back on with dignity.
Right. So we talked a bit about Izzy, and after the Mannheim incident, did you guys try to like talk Izzy into coming back, or it seemed like he'd made up his mind at that point?
Yeah, and it was a long time coming.
What was the stress and the emotions of like the rest of the guys after he left? Like, were they just like
we all knew? Jeff. I mean, we all knew. We all knew. I mean, nobody.
It's like signs of marriages breaking up.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth, Jeff. If your friend's going through a nasty divorce, you're married to a narcissist, which I was, and all they do is sleep with other people. Pretty soon, your friends know if you're going to walk in that relationship, they support it. So that's kind of the same thing with us. It was just like, just let him do what he's going to do. He's going to be happier riding his motorcycles and between Malibu and Indiana. Just let him go. Be happy,
Right.
He put in his time. Nobody's going to beg him or strong arm him to come back. Just let him go.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what he's done since. I mean, he's going to do his own thing. He's always done his own thing.
And
I mean, even when the band was on tour, obviously, with that,
I'd love to have a crack at some of those Juju Hound records as his manager because they're great.
I think they're amazing.
Yeah.
He just has the wrong manager. I think it's Niven. So
So when Izzy quit, did Slash or Duff almost consider following suit because they were fed up with a lot of stuff?
No, that didn't come up until Axl started to bring in Zach and Dave Navarro, and he wanted a third guitar player in the band. And Slash said, "I'm not sharing leads. That's ridiculous, and I'm not going to do it."
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to if I was Slash.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to if I was Slash either. So when it came time to look for new guitar players, did you guys audition a bunch of rhythm guitar players besides Gilby, or?
No, I think Gilby. No, well, I don't.
Wasn't Zach Weil in the mix?
That was later. I managed Zach on this Pride and Glory record, and Zach's what a great guy he is. I mean,
is Zach playing on the Aussie Farewell Tour? Do you know?
Yeah, I heard he is.
Yeah.
It was, God bless him. I mean, I love Zach, but you know, he wanted me to put out Pride and Glory on Geffen during a time when Nirvana was on Geffen, and you know, Pride and Glory was a Southern rock record, and nobody in America wanted to hear a Southern rock.
I thought it was great.
It was great, but try selling it, Jeff.
Yeah.
Try selling it when the two biggest records in Billboard are Nevermind, backed by Teen Spirit, and 10 by Pearl Jam. I mean, good luck.
Agreed.
Yeah, so
change the tides of the time.
Yeah, so also like this is when you guys started to do a lot of the music videos, like Don't Cry and those bigger ones. But I guess Izzy was still in the band, but he just never showed up for the video for Don't Cry.
Pretty much, yeah. And I pulled, I mean, you know, this is one of those things that Izzy knows that the band just, I don't know whether they're too wasted or they don't remember or whatever. But I pulled a great business move. Eddie Rosenblatt, the then president, and I was 29 years old. But I'm editing down the sold out Live from the Tokyo Dome videos. And Eddie Rosenblatt, the president of Geffen, calls me in. And I used to call him Pop. He called me Kid. Eddie's a great guy.
Is it true that Axl was pissed off at the stage schematics of those shows?
I don't know.
That
would be news to me.
Teddy told us
that there was some safety because of the fire code. They had to scale down the stage in Japan, and Axl showed up to rehearsal and was like pissed off about the stage being scaled back.
I don't remember that. Could have happened. I'm not saying it didn't, but he didn't air that with me that I remember.
Okay.
I did do something interesting. Axl always, you know, screw the Japanese, you know, they want me to go on stage at 5 o'clock. And I remember that. I put that one in my back pocket from the Appetite tour. And so I go to Axl before we're going to Japan, had a huge offer. And I instead of using Mr. Udo, the famous promoter over there, he wanted $1.5 million a show. And so I went direct to the Tokyo Dome and cut that fee out. And that's just one of those things that, you know, nobody taught me how to do that. I just figured it out. Why should I pay a guy $1.5 million so I can sell the tickets? I don't need them. So I go to Axl's room and say, "Hey, Doug, I got to figure it out. Screw the Japanese," just like you said. He goes, "What?" I go, "We're going to go on stage on your time clock." He goes, "Huh?" So I blacked out his van, right? When they picked him up at the airport, they showed him on the tarmac, stuck him in a blacked out van, stuck him in a blacked out room. And so we were going on stage at 5 o'clock, but it wasn't 5 o'clock in LA. It was more like 1 a.m.
Yeah.
So you just do what you can, right? So as far as I said, don't change your watch. I set all the clocks in his room to LA time. Right? So he's looking at the clock. Hey, it's 11 o'clock at night. I'm just now going to the show. It's all light out. It's just blacked out. He doesn't know.
Right on.
So, but on the videos, Eddie Rosenblatt says, he calls me to his office and says, "Look, I'm out of the video business." I said, "Why?" He said, "Why? 2.1 for November Rain, 1.7 for Estranged." He goes, I'm done. I know I'm about to put out Live from the Tokyo Dome in a couple months. So I said, "Look, how about this?" Because at the time, it was an 85-15 in their favor. They were getting 85%. So I said, "What do you say we flip the numbers? I'll take 85, you take 15, and I'm going to let you have the distribution so you make your 15. I go that way, and you'll still front the money, take it out of royalties." And he agrees. He said, if you can get it signed today, great. I write it up really fast. I drive to Izzy's place first. Sign it. What is it? You got to sign it now. I'll explain it later. Because he said if it's not here by close of business, deal's off.
Right.
So I went to all the members' houses, 5 guys, got their signatures, delivered it. I released the video 3 months later, and the band makes $40 million.
I bought one of them, so you got some of my allowance.
So I want to ask you, Doug, how did you guys choose Tokyo as a place to do the live, like the concert record? Was there
my
any
idea.
other, so was there any other places or countries you guys were thinking of doing the live record?
The technology was so far advanced in Japan at the time that I knew the broadcast quality not just sonically, but in particular, the cameras that they had were smoked anything else in the world. So if you're going to do one, do it there.
Absolutely.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, I've always wondered that. The other thing I want to ask, when you guys were on the tour, did you guys ever consider playing countries that, like, I heard Axl wanted to play China at one point, and Russia you guys were supposed to play, but it was canceled because of the political situation.
Yeah. I mean, they think, and God bless them, you can't polish a turd. So I did have some great stuff to work with, but the fact that my degrees in international marketing may have helped the fact that they're still the one band who sold more records outside the US and in. While they're sleeping, I'm doing marketing plans for Israel and South America, and I'm on the phone with those guys. And so, now they're reaping the rewards of a lot of hard work that I did and taking them to those countries. But no, taking them outside of America was my idea. I mean, I sat with Axl and Slash and said, guys, look, when you invest your money, you don't put all your eggs in one basket. So when Nirvana and Pearl Jam are ruling America, we're out making millions of dollars per show, because we'd sowed those seeds early on in the foreign country. And to be honest with you, I have Mel Posner to thank for a lot of that, the head of international for Geffen. He was best international guy I've ever seen. It's my Uncle Mel. He's phenomenal.
Right on.
Yeah, absolutely. So you talked about music videos. Were there any other songs that Guns wanted to do music videos for, but they just never were able to do it or never got around to it?
No, like, that brings up the great debate between Axl and I of Use Your Illusion. What was it, 32, 34 songs? Something like
34 songs or something?
Yeah. And I told him, I said, it's one of the biggest arguments we had, other than I don't like Billy Joel and he thinks he's the greatest songwriter ever, which he chucked me under the bus with that one. That's another story. But I told him, I said, look, yet again, you're assuming that Johnny Q. Public is as intelligent as you, and you're going to have songs that never got heard. The best song that's never been heard by Guns N' Roses, I mean, it's the best song. It's the best song they've ever played. Double Talk and Jive. Double Talk and Jive it's a short song. I'm sure you guys know the tune.
Yeah,
like I am. But you've got that incredible solo, and then the outro, he goes to flamenco. I mean,
right.
But nobody ever heard it because they released 2 albums. And Axl's point was nobody's ever had album number 1 and 2 at Billboard, and I want that. It's like,
why was the albums not from, I guess, a financial or looking way down the line point of view? Why were they simultaneously released instead of one released and then like a year and a half later?
You're validating my argument. That's exactly what I just said.
Okay.
It'll lengthen the tour cycle, right?
Right.
You drop 1 and then monitor how it's doing. And second, it goes from 1 down to 5, bang, drop another one.
Right.
You just breathe more life into the tour cycle. We can stay out for longer. And the songs will be heard, and they'll all get their due, and I'll be able to go to the label and say, we made 4 videos for that one. Let's make another 4. When you drop 2 of them, you only get 4 videos. That's it. 3 or 4 videos.
Right.
And so, and I knew that was going to happen, but it was just one of those things, one of those debates I lost. And because at the end of the day, I can, just like with Sharon, I can certainly vocalize my point, but at the end of the day, it's your guys' band, and you can either pay attention to what I'm saying or not.
Right. Well, speaking of videos, in a sense, I've always wondered, and I've always wanted an answer. Why did Guns never do an unplugged when it was so popular back then?
Because everybody did it. You just said why.
Okay. Is that the same reason they never did SNL?
No, I mean, we would have done SNL had they asked.
They never asked.
They never asked Guns to do SNL.
That's bullshit. How can you be the #1 band in the world? And did they with Lorne Michaels like? I'm sure big conservative view of what happened with
I'm sure Lorne Michaels and Dick Clark probably had a conversation.
I just find it like completely astonishing and amazing that they were never asked. I mean, they were the biggest.
Well, if we were, it would have been through either Laurie Earle or Brent Breidenthal, and it never got to me because I would have done that because I grew up, loving Belushi and Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd and the Bassomatic and all that shit, right?
Yes. So was Axl an SNL fan?
I don't know. I don't know that we ever had that discussion. And I remember pretty much every discussion I've ever had in my life. So I don't remember that one.
I'm just amazed they never did it. And I always wondered, I mean, even that was like the peak of SNL too at the time.
Yeah. It's kind of shocking. So did MTV ever reach out to Guns, like to you as a manager to come do Unplugged?
Yeah. I mean, I talked to Van Toffler and Dave Skrolnick about it a number of times. I just said, guys, it's been played, and we're trendsetters, we're not followers, and so you come up with a different format that talk to me about it. But
Was Axel at all into the idea, or he kind of felt the same way too?
No, he felt pretty much the same way. I mean, that's, you know, they rarely didn't listen to what I said, but we certainly had our non-acrimonious disagreements.
Yeah. The other thing sorry, my questions are all over the place because I wrote them as I can remember them.
That's right.
One of the other things I want to ask, so you talked about touring and the tour cycle. When Guns released a Spaghetti Incident, was there ever any plans to do a tour for that album?
No. That was kind of an afterthought, you know, filler, buy some time while we get everything else together.
And then you guys only did one video for it, Since I Don't Have You. Were there ever any plans to do any other videos besides that song?
Not really. No, we weren't chasing it that hard. It was just something to do.
Right. I mean, it wasn't really marketed or publicized that it was coming out as much as the Illusion albums were. So you just showed up one day at the record store and it was there.
But yeah, a little bit by design, Jeff. You know, if you're trying to chase something, you go after it aggressively. And we were just, like I said, we're just trying to buy time. And and since they weren't originals, you know, I mean, look, I think that to make a video for Hair of the Dog would have been great. Right. Classic Nazareth tune. Yeah. But you know, it didn't happen. I mean, we were all kind of busy doing other stuff.
So one of my favorite parts of Since I Don't Have You is Gary Oldman's in the video.
Yeah.
Do you have any stories of Gary Oldman on the set or hanging with Guns?
No, that was more of an Axel thing. He called Oldman in, but that song was my idea.
Oh, to do
the single for it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it wasn't necessarily a single choice, but the inclusion of that song in that
album
record. Yeah. That was my idea. Because I've always been a huge fan of that song. So I went to Axel with it and I said, you know, you don't have a ballad. What about this one? He goes, okay. So they went and did it.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's something I didn't know before. So this brings me to my next point about the Charles Spaghetti Incident. They got a lot of shit for covering the Charles Manson song, and it was in the news recently that they played the cover at his funeral. So did you ever talk to Axel? Like, why was he wearing Charles Manson shirts like on the Skin and Bones tour so much?
And more of a tongue-in-cheek, screw you. You know, I mean, he's just like, really? You think I support that kind of ideology?
Like nobody knows he's a lesbian.
His last name is Goldstein. Hello?
Yeah.
You know, so no, I mean, you know, that harkens back to what I said earlier about, you know, you don't explain your art.
See, I always thought that, and this is just my theory, because this is around the time that I read he broke up with Stephanie Seymour, and then he started. So the shirts had nothing to do with his breakup with Stephanie Seymour.
Nothing.
Okay.
Nothing. No, it was, like I said, it was more like, seriously, you think I'm a Manson fan, right? And so I'm going to wear the shirt just to say screw you. It's like I'm wearing Dragon Ball Z, right? I'm wearing Dragon Ball Z. That was my kids. I wasn't raised during the era of Dragon Ball Z. It's kind of like I wear the shirt and people go, "Oh, you're into Dragon Ball Z?" No.
So were the people at the record label pissed off that there was a Manson cover included? Like, I thought the whole press thing was ridiculous because so many bands had covered his songs anyways.
Right.
You know, nobody. I mean, I think nobody ever wanted to confront either me or Axel on our stuff. You know, nobody ever said, "Hey, gee, we're not going to include it," or "Why are you doing this?" Post fact, you know, I'd get the phone calls, but no, I mean, and they knew what we were going to do and not do. I mean, you know, that's like getting the phone calls that you know, on 1 in a Million, David Geffen is gay, and you know, how is he going to explain it to his buddies at the gay men's health crisis? Right? I mean, which we're I don't know if you know that we're supposed to play that.
Right.
Yeah, I know. I remember reading that, but then because I guess they got too much pressure that they took Guns off the bill.
They took us off the bill. Yeah.
So that brings me to my next question, which is the Freddie Mercury tribute. Yeah. I remember reading about it that there was a lot of pressure on the Queen organization to cut Guns from the bill. Like, was there a chance that, even though they didn't do it, but was there like a lot of, were you guys scared for your security and personal safety at the Freddie Mercury tribute?
No, that's ridiculous. Why would it be? No, you had me, who, you know, I mean, I'm not exactly a pushover, right? I mean, you've got Earl Gavadon, you've got John Reed, you've got some of the biggest, baddest people on the planet, and Axel's crazy. So no, I mean, and I think the only reason Queen was that I'd never heard that they were put that pressure on, but probably the fact that Axel never came to a sound check, not once, and he didn't come to rehearsals. And I had Billy Squire up my ass. Doug, have me do it. I say, no, go away, Billy. He's going to be there, right? No, he's not. No, Axel's going to no show, and then it's going to be. Okay, you know him better than I do, Billy. You've never met him before in your life. Right?
Yeah.
Go away.
I got this.
So So you talked a little about the frustrations that the band members had with Axl. Was one of them, I'm guessing, the fact that Axl never showed up to rehearsals?
No, they were kind of used to that. I mean, we had this. Do you know the NXS story?
Oh, the Texas show.
Yeah.
Was that the one where Axl he couldn't get locked out or something, or he didn't show up?
No, wrong. No. I set up sound check all week, and they wanted to do Blow with Iggy Pop instead. I'm like, guys, look, stadium show, outdoor. It's going to be Texas Stadium. It's huge. You should at least sound check one night, please. I'm begging you.
Right.
Okay, we'll be there. And then they wouldn't show up every night. So Axl comes out. Sound is horrible. He can't hear himself. And so he takes a break and he goes back out. And they're the next band on, right?
Yeah.
And Axl says, hey, it's great to be in Texas where everything is big. Ah! The whole crowd's, ah! He goes, and the cool thing about that, with everything being big in Texas, is the next band is the biggest bunch of pussy posers in the fucking music industry. Good night. Oh, no. I ended up having to knock out their sound engineer because he was going to kick Axl's ass. No, over my dead body.
That's funny. I never heard that. I just remember it from the Photographic History documentary. Like Slash said, it was one of the worst gigs they played.
Yeah, well, then stop doing Blow with Iggy Pop. Show up for a sound check, damn it.
So when you guys were on the Illusions tour, Teddy, we talked to about this. You guys had a camera crew like filming everything.
Doc crew, yeah. And that stuff's locked in a vault. I mean, again, I'm not working with this incarnation. Clearly, I'm the only man who's out, right?
Yeah.
I only help launch you guys, but don't worry about me. I'm fine. I'll get a job as a greeter at Walmart. That's okay.
See you at the gas station.
You guys go ahead and make your millions on stuff that I put you in, but don't worry about me.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would have had them. First off, their press release was a paragraph, right? They didn't do a press release. They didn't do any kind of television. They still haven't done any damn television.
Right.
And I would have had them hang gliding naked over Dodger Stadium with a flare in their ass saying, "We're back." And I would have had them as part of their not getting along when they decided to get along, at least agree to put in IMAXs, all of that old stuff. Make it like Song Remains the Same was when I was a kid. Saturday only, you got to be there. It's a midnight showing, just like when we released Use Your Illusion at midnight. I mean, make it special. Don't just, I mean, it's funny, guys, I talked to a buddy of mine, he's in the industry, and he's in Phoenix, and he goes, hey, the band's touring? Yeah. He goes, when are they going to play Phoenix? I go, last night. He goes, what? They played there last night. But, and no slam on Fernando. He's a good kid. But, my favorite line from The Jerk is, this is shit, this is Shinola. And last time I jumped off, Fernando was the guy who, when 9:45, Axl would say, you got to get to Blockbuster before 10 and get that movie for me. And that's his experience in the music industry, right? So, and I can't believe for the life of me that Slash and Duff are letting them get away with it. But
So why do you think that they got back together after all these years, that they somehow put these 20 years of feuding behind the money?
Yeah.
So were you surprised when Izzy was not involved in it? Because it seems like he's upset that he wasn't treated equally.
Izzy's the principal guy.
Yeah.
And they wanted to undercut him, and I don't know why. I mean, if you want the original members back together, then pay everybody equally, and let Steven sit down on the kit for the last song, do Paradise City, let the guy go off. He don't even want to get paid.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Steven's heart's in it. He wants to do it. I mean, maybe, you get all 5 guys back in one room, like Mark said, with no handlers, and they can just knock their shit out.
Nah.
You don't
so, Doug, do you think they'll ever make music again, or it's just about touring at this point?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I mean, I don't know factually, but they're so talented and so creative. It's shame on them if they can't figure out how to get into a studio. And they should use Steve Thompson, quite honestly.
Yeah. So did you guys, have you seen any of the reunion shows at all?
No. John Reese, when I was talking to him, he went to a show and he had passes for him and his now wife, who was our flight attendant at the time, and his daughters, his 2 from a previous marriage, to Mia, who's a doll, and to his daughter with his new wife, and they went, and they're back with Kanye West and I forget a couple other people, and one of the Brazilians, Betta's family comes out. Yeah. One of the daughters comes out and takes back only Axl's guests, and so Kanye got left there, a couple of other celebrities, and John Reese. And John Reese was the tour manager for the band, and And he got embarrassed. And so once I heard that, I went, well, they don't hate him. They hate me for some reason, because they think I'm the guy that, you know, July 5 of 93, when I was sitting with my wife having a child, they thought I was the guy taking the name back. And so, you know, I mean, it's unfortunate. You know, like I said earlier, you know, I'll accept culpability for the things I did and didn't do. Shit, I gave Niven credit for, you know, going in and asking for money for Sweet Child of Mine.
Right.
I'm not trying to rewrite history.
Right. So you also talked a bit about Kanye West. I wanted to ask you, like, when you guys were on tour, on the Illusions tour, did you have a ton of celebrities hanging out backstage?
Oh yeah, all the time. And you know, all the Victoria's Secrets models were hanging out, and you know, Naomi Campbell, and you know, all of them were. And so yeah, I mean, Donald Trump, he came to a show, Madison Square Garden. The same show that Billy Joel came to, and you know, called me out for not liking his music because they actually told him. but yeah, Trump came, and you know, I said, "Why are you here?" And he said, "Well, I want to meet the Axl Rose of rock and roll." And I'm like, if you showed a dog a card trick and said, "Pick one, anyone," I had no idea what he was talking about. So I said, "I'm confused." He said, "Doug, you know, when you're the underdog, the press builds you up, and then once you're on top, they rip your ass back down." Which, how prophetic! That's what's happening to him now.
Yeah. So I want. So did Axl and Donald get along pretty well back then?
Yeah. That's the only time I've read something in the press that I went, really? With Axl. Axl tells the truth all the time. And then I see that he said, you know, that he wasn't a big Trump fan, and he made some disparaging remarks. I'm thinking, hang on a second. I was standing there when I introduced you to him, and you were, "Oh, hi, Mr. Trump. It's nice to meet you." So I don't know where that.
So one thing I had read is that Donald was going to bankroll a Guns N' Roses film at some point in the 90s. Was that true, or was that?
No, I never heard about it.
Okay, because I'd heard I had heard that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you know, I called my ex-wife. I was remarried at the time, and I said, "Guess who was at the show?" She goes, "Who?" I said, "Donald Trump." She goes, "Shut up." I go, "Oh, I'm serious. F you." I go, "Why would I lie? I've never lied in my life. Why would I lie about that?" "Doug, shut up." I go, "Fine." I said, "So I'll see you tomorrow." She came into New York, and we're having dinner with Peter Mensch and his then wife. And Peter Mensch was like a mentor to me. He was really good to me. And his then wife, and I have to, because the bodyguard and stuff, I have to face the door. So how many restaurants there in Manhattan? Bang, Trump walks in the door. And he goes, "Hey, Doug Goldstein." He sits down and spent about, I don't know, close to an hour with us. And he gave me his business card. I used to carry it around. I said I had the Trump card.
Yeah.
You know, and he said, "If you ever need anything, you know, don't hesitate to get a hold of me." And so I know a guy that works with him named Josh Macias. He's this guy, like Jeff with his thing in his ear. He's a Secret Service guy. He stands next to him in front of 30,000 people and goes, "Bad guy, red shirt."
Yeah.
How do you do that? But I want to go to Mar-a-Lago, and I want to talk to Trump about stopping war, because war is about money, and it's you know, to send somebody who's 18 years old to kill another decent human being who's 18 years old just because he's from another country. You know, it's been going on my whole life. It's been going on as long as there's people on the planet.
Right.
Yeah.
And if your approval rating's in the toilet and you want to make it go on top, then stop war. There's always going to be bad guys, but we have specialists like my buddy Travis Lively, who's a Navy SEAL Team 3 guy. You know, that's when there's bad guys like that, then you get a guy like Travis, and he goes and, you know, puts a thing on their head and a zip tie, and that's it. So don't send these 18 to 24-year-old kids to leave parents behind and leave children behind. And I'm over it. In my lifetime, I really want to do something about it, you know, and I want to pay homage to the veterans.
So yeah, did Axl ever talk about politics with you? I think the most political song they ever did was Civil War.
Yeah, I mean, I knew his viewpoints. He knew mine. They were pretty similar. You know, I don't believe that a person should ever have to worry about a roof over their head or food in their belly. You know, and Josh and I, this Josh Macias guy who works for the president, he also does cybersecurity for him. Yeah. Josh and I have designed a turquoise, you know, the pink breast cancer ribbon.
Yeah.
Well, we've designed one like that, only it's turquoise camouflage for veterans. And I want to do concerts and give the money to veterans. So that's one of my goals. I want to put it on, you know, I want to put it on Campbell's soup and Coca-Cola cans and have some of the proceeds go to veterans. And these are people that give their lives so that you and I can sit where we are and, you know, and have a life without worrying about, you know, people coming into our homes and shooting our dog or our kids or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very noble cause.
Agreed.
So I wanted to stay on the Illusions tour. So when you guys got off the Illusions tour, like you talk about that incident in Barcelona, like did you guys, when the tour was over now, like were there ever any attempts to like continue the tour going after July of '93, or was it just like you guys were on the tour for so long?
They continued after July '93. They went on for another, because the only time I was never with them was the 2 weeks when I went home to see the birth of my child.
Yeah.
And then I went back out. I missed Bogota, Colombia. I had swore that I would never go back there, and I didn't.
Yeah, I heard that was an amazing trip.
I want to hear all about the South America, because that must have been frightening. Like when I read all the stories and how much stress you must have been under. Like you guys go to South America in '92. Before you go to South America, did you guys know what you were getting yourselves into?
Yeah. It's the only country in the world that I ask for all the money up front. Usually it's a 50% down, and I'll pick up 50 when I get there. And it's the only country in the world that I hired U.S. Embassy security.
So, now, were they watching the doors, their hotel rooms? Because Teddy was telling us that some countries were like planting drugs in their hotel rooms just to get to them. Or
BS. It didn't happen. Okay. Not true.
All right.
Maybe Matt Storm was planning blow in their room.
We can get to that later.
Yeah.
So you guys are in Colombia. This is around the time Pablo Escobar is in the news. I remember reading that in Duff's book that Pablo claimed he was a friend of the band. Of course, I'm guessing that wasn't true.
I never saw him. I wouldn't be surprised if Duff and Matt rolled into him.
Yeah.
Getting freebies, right? But there's a funny story, Sid. I don't know if you heard it or not, but the entire time we're there, there's literally machine gun fire that you hear. I mean, you're just laying there and you hear in the hills, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm on the phone. It's morning time. And all of a sudden, I'm on the phone to the States, and the building rocks with a bomb. It's like this.
Wow.
So Duff comes in, and he's been up for 4 days because we are in Colombia, remember? And so you can certainly.
Didn't a car explode right out front of the hotel room?
Yeah, I don't know where it was, but it rocked the hotel. And so, so I'm on the phone. Duff comes in. He goes, "Duff, what was that?" I go, hey, "Let me call you back." I hang up the phone. I go, "What's up?" "What was that?" I go, "What was what?" "What was what?" The fucking bomb. I go, "Oh, the bomb." "Oh, the bomb?" He goes, "I'm on my way to the airport. I'm out of here." I go, no, you're not. I go, "If you leave, I get kidnapped until we return the money, and you're not going to do that to me. You go to leave, I'm going to break your legs." He goes, "Kiss my ass. I'm out of here." I go, "But stop." I go, "I'm going to take you back to El Compadre on Sunset." I sit with you guys and say, and he's shaking his head already. "What do you guys want to be?" And you guys tell me, "Biggest band in the world." He goes, "No." I go, "Yeah, you did." He goes, "No." "Duff." He goes, "Slash Axl, biggest band in the world." "Duff, biggest band in North America." "Okay for me." See you. Don't leave. Yeah.
So what convincing to keep him there did you have to do?
Well, I mean,
other than words, you just hand him a bottle and say, "Sit."
The whole story is Caracas, Venezuela. The night before we get out, our gear's held. It's supposed to be 2 shows. We're supposed to play Friday, Saturday. It was a Thursday night in Caracas. We leave there, we land, and the promoters are the guy who runs a radio station, the guy who runs a newspaper, the guy who runs a television station. So good luck getting my story out. So they go, "Mr. Goldstein," and they've been doing blow for days. "Mr. Goldstein," and tequila or whatever they drink. "You have to give us the money back. We're only doing the Saturday show." I said, "No, we're going to do Saturday and Sunday. We have a day off, so our gear will be here. We'll do Saturday and Sunday." "No, fuck you. You give us half the money back." "I'm not going to do it." Good night. So I go to bed about 3 o'clock in the morning. They call me and say, "We have Wendy Lacer, your publicist." I go, "She's not that good. Good night." So Wendy hates me for that. But so we play one show. They oversell it by 30,000 people.
Oh.
And there's, I mean, the band's playing, and it was kind of a cool moment that I'll never forget. I mean, I'm watching police with huge, on horseback with these huge mallets, and they're beating people over the head. And the band starts playing November Rain. The skies open up. It's an open stadium, and it's pouring rain on them. And there's no cover on the stage. It's pretty cool. But so they ravage the city. They tear up downtown Bogota. And so 7 o'clock in the morning, I speak Spanish and I read Spanish. So 7 o'clock in the morning, on my door. I open the door in my boxers. The guy hands me a letter. Oh, first he puts a machine gun on my chest. I forgot the important part. Puts a machine gun on my chest, hands me a letter. I read it. It says, "You have a mandatory meeting with the mayor at 3 o'clock. So I tell him in Spanish, as soon as Mr. Goldstein gets back, I'll let him know. So I call my head of U.S. Embassy Security, Steve. I go, "Steve, what does it say?" He goes, "It says you have a meeting." I said, "Shut up, Steve. I know it says there's no meeting, is there?" He goes, "Nope." I go, "It's time to boogie, right?" He goes, "Yep." I go, "Okay, wake up the band." So I called the guys and I said, I called the bodyguards and I said, "Wake up all your guys. We got to go." Packed up, took off. And in Bogota, you're real high elevation. It's kind of like Mexico City. So we go to leave, and the plane doesn't take off, and they start to circle back. I'm going, I'm screwed. I'm screwed. They're going to kill me. They're not going to kill the band. They're going to kill the guy that has the money, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it true that you guys left the plane behind there?
No.
Okay.
No, we were on our plane, but it didn't take off because they hadn't oxygenated the jets to a point that, because it's a different mix, right, of oxygen and gas at that point.
Right.
Oxygen, diesel, whatever.
So they didn't have time really to prep the plane before you were like, we're getting
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you do in a situation like that, and I didn't realize it until we pulled back in, and I was like, hide me. But they have to pump in more oxygen to change that mix, or change the mix and change it back when you get to the next city.
Right. Wow. I mean, like, you guys are just on the move all the time.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of learn to adapt.
Right.
So were things in Brazil a bit easier or a little safer when you were there?
I don't know about safer, but yeah, I mean, different. I do remember when we played Rock in Rio, I had Dave Mustaine calling me, shows up at my door crying. I just want to talk to Axel. He doesn't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to talk to you. I don't know what to say. Doesn't want to talk to you. Please just tell me. Dave, no. Mr. Megadeth, right?
Yeah.
Well, Dave would always show up. Like, he showed up at that Rich show in '87, and and then there was the Monsters of Rock show too. So Dave always kind of showed up.
Dave Mustaine's a great guy when he's sober. Fantastic guy. He cannot be the greatest guy when he's not sober.
Right.
So I want.
What's the guy? Dave, guitar player in the band. Anyway, super nice guy. Super nice guy.
So when you guys went to Argentina, I remember the controversy. It was the first time you guys played Argentina. It was like 1992, and there was all this garbage in the media about the band.
Dave Epfelson.
Ellison. Yeah, Ellison's a good dude, man. I love Ellison.
Elfson. That's
okay. Yeah.
My bad.
Great guy. He's another Phoenician.
Yeah.
So there was all these stories about the members burning the Argentinian flag. They weren't going to buy boots in Argentina. Like, weren't you guys getting death threats and stuff when you guys were in Argentina the first time?
Yeah, you kind of keep those away from the band. You
kind of keep them away from the band. Oh, okay.
Yeah, you don't have the band to know that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, like when I was with David Lee Roth, we played Madison Square Garden, and 2 refrigerator boxes show up, and I'm director of security, and this guy comes waltzing in, he's just gonna walk him right into Dave's dressing room, and the security's letting him go. Okay, come on in, get delivery. I go, stop. I open them up. There's a box of baby clothes and toys, and a letter saying, "Hey, Dave, you haven't called me yet. I'm looking forward to seeing you." Connie or whatever her name was. Open the second box, and it's knives. If you don't call me, this is what's going to happen. And that was just going to waltz into Dave's dress. He wouldn't have gone on stage. So I called the FBI, and they ended up finding the girl. But I mean, so there's certain stuff that you don't necessarily share with the band. Why do they need to know if you have it under control?
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to move a little bit from the Illusions tour. You guys get off the road. There's that period from '94 to '96 where the band's trying to write a record. In terms of like, were you still managing Guns full time, or you managed like Blind Melon as well, right?
Well, no, not really. I mean, I had Chris Jones doing the day-to-day on it, and that's one of my great frustrations in life is I'm calling Chris pretty much every day. How's Shannon doing? He's fine. He's fine? Yeah, he's fine. And then when he wasn't fine, because my reputation in the industry, one of the reasons I got the job with Guns is I'd done a lot of work with bands helping get them clean.
Right.
And had I known there was an issue, I would have pulled out from the Guns thing, told everybody else, look, I'll be back. I got to go check in on Shannon, make sure he's okay. And I wasn't given that opportunity. So it's pretty frustrating.
So what was Axel's? Was Axel's pretty bummed out when she learned about Shannon?
Yeah. As was I. I mean, he was literally like a son to me. I mean, he was just a good guy. And he's half crazy, like Axel. Sweetest guy in the world, but if you get on the wrong side of him, he's going to mess you up.
Right.
Sorry, Jeff, you had a question?
No, I was just agreeing with Doug.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it came time to, for Guns to write the next record, I mean, was your day, what kind of calls were you getting? Were you involved that much day to day, or was it like a lot less stressful between that time?
Yeah, it was pretty tough. I mean, yeah, I was involved. I mean, look, Axel's my best friend. So, at one point, everybody's gone, and including David Geffen, Slash and Duff are gone, Matt's gone. And I'm dealing with Buckethead and all that whole deal, and having to put a chicken coop in the studio for him to do his leads in. And I mean, it was pretty weird there towards the end.
Yeah.
And he's got cellophane over his television because he takes care of himself in front of the TV and doesn't want to mess up his TV. I mean, it's just weird, right?
No.
So I have these meetings with Jimmy Iovine about once every 2 weeks. And so I'm sitting in one meeting, and a half an hour meeting's gone 2.5. And his assistant walks in and says, "Hey, Jimmy, you promised this guy from New York you'd listen to his artists." "Oh, shit, I forgot. Hey, Doug, do you mind?" "Yeah, no problem." So they bring in a cassette. I'll tell you how long ago it was. And some white kid doing rap. And Jimmy says, I don't get it. Tell him we pass. I said, whoa, stop the presses. I said, "Jimmy, hang on a second. You're selling Dre records and Snoop records to African-American kids around the country. This white kid doing rap, and he's good, by the way." I said, "You realize that people in Texas and Wisconsin and shit, the UK and Scandinavia, when they hear this, they're going to go crazy. Get this guy in here, give him whatever he wants. Run him a big check." He goes, "What?" I go, "Jim, you're going to pass?" I go, "Dude, you're missing it." Paul Rosenberg walks in. It's Eminem.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I handed my card. I said, "Mr. Rosenberg, my name's Doug Goldstein. I manage Guns N' Roses." I said, "You're about to go on Mr. Toad's Wild Ride." And he didn't know what that meant. It's Disneyland reference.
Yeah.
And I said, "Call me, if you need any help." And so I helped him I got him Cuban cigars and introduced him to some other people. But I let him and Jimmy be, and I left. But I mean, nobody really knows that story.
So did Axl ever meet Eminem, or was he an Eminem fan?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, I don't know whether he was a fan or not. I kind of like all different kinds of music, any genre.
Yes. So you mentioned Buckethead. Like, what was Buckethead like? Like, is he a guy you could interact with and actually have a conversation with?
Yeah, one of the most difficult people on the planet. But Axl tried everything. He went to Disneyland with him. I think Disneyland, Magic Mountain. Yeah, I mean, he tried pretty much everything and got him in the band. And
I live in Cincinnati, and Bootsy is one of our staples. And I have friends. I don't know if you've heard of the band Freak Bass.
No.
Chris Sherman. He's one of Bootsy's understudies, and
okay.
And so when Bucket will play Cincinnati or the area, like Bootsy will be involved, and I just happened to be at the right place in the right time, and I crossed Bucket's path right when he's putting his bucket on his head, and like out of Bootsy's minivan,
right.
And like the second he put that crown on, he was like physically and emotionally a different person.
Absolutely, no question. And I'll tell you what, without the bucket, he's one of the sweetest people ever.
Right.
But you're right. Talk about a transformation once that chicken bucket goes on his head. Wow.
So when he's in the studio, he's always got the bucket on.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I wasn't in the studio much, but my understanding was, yeah, pretty much.
Wow. And, never break character, buddy.
It became kind of funny. I mean, I'd hear that, well, what are you guys doing? Well, he'll have to build a chicken coop. Why? Because Buckethead wants to always leave in a chicken coop. Okay. Just when you thought it couldn't get any weirder.
So I wanted to ask you, during this period, I remember Axl said in an interview he went and lived in China for a bit, or he stayed in China for a bit.
I'm not aware of that.
Not aware of that. Okay, I was just curious about that. So getting back to the end of the Illusion tour, did you guys know that it was pretty much over? Like, these guys were never going to be able to record a record at the end?
No,
not
at all.
Really?
There's still a lot of hope for everything.
Axl had his ideas of bringing in a third guitar player, and I said, I don't see it happening, but I'll talk to the guys. And the whole Paul Hughey, Paul Tobias, whatever. In all fairness to Axl, all he ever said to those guys was, "He's here until you replace him." That's it.
Yeah, I guess that wasn't communicated between the two of those guys.
Sid, it was communicated.
Okay.
I couldn't be more straightforward. And because I used to say it all the time, "Why is he here?" I've told you guys 1,000 times. He's only there until you bring somebody else in. As soon as you bring somebody else in, Paul's no longer in the room.
So what was the whole?
Realizes he's not the greatest guitar player, and he's not the best looking guitar player. So he's just waiting for you to replace him.
Yeah.
So during this time, Axl was kind of learning and practicing guitar himself, correct?
Yeah, correct.
So do you think that Axl, if he just would have stuck to it, could have eventually filled those shoes?
Nah. Okay. No, he didn't want it.
Okay.
He didn't want it. He likes being free to run around, and no, you put a guitar around his neck, he can't run like he does.
So what was the whole story with Gilby getting let go? Like, did he rehearse with the band ever to write new material, and Axl just wasn't into the sound of the band?
No. I mean, Axl was very straightforward with Gilby all the way down the line, and I think Slash led him to believe that it would go on longer. Axl said, once the tour's over, that's it. Thank you very much. And way before the tour, when it was hot.
Right.
He said, you know, this is good. And Axel's one of those guys, when he tells you something, he's a man of his word. And I think probably Slash and Duff over beers or blow or whatever. I don't know that Gilby ever partake, but you know, they told him, hey, just let us work on him a little bit. And Axel said he'd already told him. So as soon as the tour was over, in Axel's mind, he'd never deviated from that. He had told him all along, and he didn't think he was being unfair. Okay. And Gilby has, I understand, I don't talk to Gilby, but I understand he has a problem with Axel. It's not a problem with Axel. He's a man of his word. He never led you to believe anything different.
Right.
If you have a problem with anybody, you have a problem with Slash.
So when they cut the sympathy for the devil thereafter, after the tour, and Gilby makes a remark in regards to, well, it's my favorite band, and I'm pissed off I wasn't involved in the production, he already knew what the fuck was going on, correct?
Well, like I said, he probably was misled by Slash and or Duff into believing that it would continue on. And Axel, he's a man of his word. If Axel tells you something, that you can bank on it. That's
Do you think that had anything to do with him turning down his offers for this part in the Not in a Lifetime tour?
I didn't know that he was offered anything.
Gilby said he was offered somebody. He didn't say why it wouldn't work. I think it was just conflict issues, like his schedule issues. But
yeah, with his recording of his new album, I believe.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
no,
quote unquote.
No thanks. I don't want to tour with the biggest band in the world.
I don't want any money. I'm allergic to that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to ask. So we talked about Gilby. What happened with Matt Sorum? Like.
Because I just followed Duff. I mean, Duff was his bro, and if Duff's not going to be involved in that, and it was pretty silly towards the end, and not a lot of non-communication. I'm trying to communicate Axel's side and trying to communicate their side, but they were just worlds apart.
As a manager, did you ever try to get those guys in the same room and just tell them?
I was just about to ask that. Yeah, how difficult was it?
I got him in the same room. Duff and Axel. I got him in the same room.
This is post Illusion tour.
Yeah. This is after Slash leaves. We had a dinner, and me and Axel and Duff, and they kind of talked it out. And at the end of it, I think in the beginning, Duff was gonna stick around, and then he just went, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna go to college, and he did.
So was Axel pretty, like, it's got to be shitty to be Axel because like everybody's leaving. You know, Slash has left, Duff left, Matt left. Like, did his attitude change? Yeah, I mean, did he become like more inclusive after that?
Not with me. I mean, and I'd have to say no to that, Sid. Honestly, I think there was a lot more pressure because now you don't have other people helping you toe the line, and everybody's got the microscope on you. And
was there ever a time after Duff? Was there ever a time after Duff left that Axel said maybe I should give everybody a call and see what everybody's up to, and maybe we can reevaluate the situation, or was he just like, fuck it, I'm going to move forward?
Axel's a very principled guy, and he has some abandonment issues. It's kind of like me with him. You know, I wanted to be a father, and my kids were in Hawaii, and I said, you know, I can manage it from over there. And he said no. And once I left, he felt like I had abandoned him, and so that's pretty much why I don't talk to him today. I mean, if I had to guess, other than that, I don't know why I don't talk to him. I love the guy to death.
When was the last time you did talk to him?
I wasn't aware they were working on plans for the tour. And so I did a radio interview, and I said all kinds of good things about him, kind of like what I'm doing now. And I'm sure he'll probably call me again. And so his attorney called me. It was Monday morning at 8 a.m. I'd never heard of his attorney, and I know all the attorneys. And he said, I don't know who the F you think you are, but if you continue to talk on behalf of my client, I'm going to sue you. I said, well, first off, I don't know who you are. I don't know how you got my number. I said, but next, I don't know why, if you know the law, why you think that your veiled threats trump my First Amendment rights. So how about kiss my ass and go fuck yourself and lose my contact information? And then about maybe 20 minutes later, my phone rings. It's Axel. Hey, Dougie, I heard the interview. Thank you for all the kind words, but I'm working on some stuff, trying to repair some past relationships. He's Slash. And this isn't helping. I'm thinking, well, how's it not help? But he said, please don't do any more interviews. I said, okay, no problem. So I didn't, but now they're together and touring. And so I feel fine talking to you guys. I never signed, there was the famous, non-disclosure stuff that everybody had to sign. Well, I was the guy giving them to people to sign. Nobody ever asked me to sign.
So I have a question about those, Doug. Like, how long does the non-disclosure agreement last for?
I mean, in perpetuity, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious because so around the time that Slash was still in the band, he was going off and doing Snake Pit, and Matt and Duff were doing Neurotic Outsiders. Was Axel getting a bit nervous? Like, these guys are going out doing their own projects. He didn't have a problem with
not at all. He figured they needed to blow off some steam. And, I was supposed to manage Slash's project, and it wasn't very good. And so Tom Zutaut called me and said, "You need to tell him that we're not going to release that record." So, whoa, hang on a second. You're a A&R guy. What do you mean I need to tell him?
The 5 O'Clock Somewhere album.
As a manager, I mean, be the ball. He's got he's trying to draw an analogy between, human life and a ball in a pinball game. And it certainly wasn't November Rain or anything like that. And so I told Tom Zutaut, I said, "You got to tell him. You're the A&R guy. You're the representative from the label. You're saying the label's not going to put it out. You got to tell him." "No, right. It's going to ruin my relationship." I said, "Well, it's not going to help mine." So I called Eddie Rosenblatt and I said, "Eddie, Tom's not." He goes, "Well, I'm not going to do it either. You got to do it." So I called Peter Mensch, who's always been like my mentor. I said, "Peter, what do I do?" He said, "You should tell him." So we went to one of Slash's favorite hangouts, Hamburger Hamlet. And I said, "You've got 12 songs and you're only about 12 away from having a hit record." I go, and I don't mean to be harsh, but the reality is I love you and you're my friend. And these songs just musically, they're great, but lyrically you should bring somebody in. And so we didn't exactly start off on the right foot. And then, Duff's project, Believe in Me, that was another one that he wanted me to manage. And they think that for some reason I shelved them because I wanted to come back to GNR. That just wasn't the truth. If they were great records, I would have been able to market them. If they just weren't.
The Believe in Me album is in my CD player in my car as we speak.
There you go.
I remember walking into the store, the record store, getting it. I'm like, "Is it out yet? Is it out yet?" And the guy's like, "Finally." I asked him every week for like 2 months once I heard it was coming out after the France interviews.
From his roots, Jeff, the punk roots, okay, I get it, but it's not nearly as marketable. It's not nearly as marketable, certainly, as an Appetite or Use Your Illusion project.
Right.
So it's a tough get.
Yeah, I mean, I like the albums. I like the side projects, but
I just told you I'd love to have a crack at the Junior House stuff. I told you that earlier.
Yeah, I love those albums.
So Doug, like
records
between 90
kind of Rolling Stones, ish stuff,
Absolutely.
So Doug, I wanted to ask you, between 94 and 97, did Guns get any concert offers to like play a one-off show in Hungary or something, or in Russia?
I'm sure we did. I don't recall, but I'm sure we did. But that wasn't the focus right then, and money wasn't a driving factor.
Okay. So when those offers for like $5 million,
but money was never what it was about, Jeff, for any of us. I mean,
right. So
and I'm a firm believer. I'm a firm believer in that. When you choose your profession, I don't care what profession. When you choose your profession, don't choose it based upon this.
Right.
Choose something that you love. God will sort out the rest. Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
So when they were getting those multi-million dollar single show offers, were you the one fielding those offers?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay. Yeah. For the reunion ones, and they were just like,
I did, Jeff. I did everything. I mean, people go, well, who negotiated your deal? Well, I did. Well, you're not an attorney. I don't care. I mean, I had an attorney tell me, and I'll leave her nameless, but, as I improved their deal from 15-point royalty, Niven was going to sell them down the river. And I had to literally put David Geffen on a table, his face on a table, because he's doing this in my face and poking me. I kept telling him, "Please don't do that." So I did. It took me 3 months, but I took him from 15% royalty to 34, more than doubling the royalty.
Right.
Put that in perspective. That means every dollar that comes into the label, they were getting 15 cents. Now I'm getting 34 cents. It was the greatest deal in the history of music. It was 4 points higher than Michael Jackson. I was 30 years old. My sweet fiance goes, "Well, yeah, but you were taught how to." Nobody ever taught me how to do that. Nobody taught me how to do that. I just figured it out as I went along.
So I wanted to ask you too, like you brought up Believe in Me, and that was sort of towards like Duff's. In April of that in '94, he has his pancreas explode. Like, how did you hear that he was in the hospital?
It's a great story. It's a great story, Sid. So his then wife, Linda, calls me and says, "Oh my God, he's in an ICU. His pancreas exploded." I said, "Fuck, I'm on my way." I told my then wife, and my son was very young at the time. I think I had both my boys. Yeah, I think I had both my boys. Anyway, so I'm on a plane. Right? And I get up there. And so she goes, "I'll take the day watch. You can come back," because I don't sleep. So I'm one of those wacky guys that just doesn't need a whole lot of sleep. So I said, "Okay, I'll take the overnight shift." She said, "Okay." She goes, "There's some Chinese food in the fridge." I said, "Okay." So I go home, and I'm in their wonderful home on Lake Washington. And in Seattle, and I open the fridge with some Chinese food, and I'm looking for chopsticks. I like eating with chopsticks, right? And I find this bag of weed. I hadn't smoked weed since junior high school, when you can smoke an entire Thai stick and nothing happens, right? So I start hitting it. Nothing's happening, hitting it. And all of a sudden, it's like, whoa, shit. And I hit the ground. I call Duff. What's in the pot? Doug, yeah, he's the one in intensive care, and I'm ready to die.
Yeah.
I go, what's in the pot? He goes, dude, it's pot. No, there's something else in it. Doug, the pot. When's the last time you smoked pot? Long time ago. He goes, it's gotten a lot stronger.
Yeah.
So I called my then wife. Please tell the kids it was an accidental death. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm ready to sign off, right? Off. So I literally sat outside the old push button phones that's got the talk button and then the buttons on it.
Yeah.
I'm sitting down with a remote phone, and I've got my thumb on talk because I don't want him to find the weed in Duff's house. So I'm outside, right? I'm gonna die in the driveway. So I've got my thumb on the talk button. I'm gonna hit talk 911 right before I go down. I'm just trying to monitor. So I pass out in some rose bush, and I wake up like 6 hours later going, whoop, dodged a bullet there.
That's hilarious. So at that point, it seems like you guys are probably surprised by the turnaround Duff did, like a complete 180 in his life after that.
You know, As I mentioned early in this conversation, Sid, it's the one thing I have to do before I die is sit down with Duff and just say, I am so sorry.
Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to talk about was Izzy came back in '93 as a rhythm guitarist. You okay, Doug?
Give Doug just a sec.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, Doug.
It's all right. I just really love Duff a lot, and he deserved better. So I'm sorry.
Well, he's on the right path now.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is. Thank God. But I had some culpability in that. Like I said earlier, Jeff, I'll own the stuff that I own. And I kept that train rolling, and I should have just pulled it off the road. And that's the biggest regret I have.
I think in my first podcast that I ever did with Sid, I said to him, I said, nobody ever took the time to collectively look at the mental health of that band and just sit them
lack
down.
Thereof. Or lack
thereof. And take them off, prior to the Illusions albums. Just maybe collectively, emotionally, and physically gave them 9 days, 9 weeks, 9 months to figure it all the fuck out before everything imploded.
Well, in all fairness, and I certainly have my own guilt over some of that, of what you're talking about. I've already told you money wasn't the driver.
Right.
And more importantly, we had a lot of time between Appetite and Use Your Illusion.
Right.
And it was failing and failing and failed attempts and failed attempts and failed attempts. This guy's almost dying from drugs. This guy is trying to commit suicide and on and on and on. And, then Use Your Illusion hits and you have to market it. And there were times when I thought we should have pulled it during Use Your Illusion for Axl's benefit. As well.
Now the band,
guys, but particularly him, he was a troubled individual during
right. I mean, even the band itself was rushed onto that tour because the Illusions albums weren't necessarily completely mastered yet, nor were they released. So going out to play new material, pushing him to do this, pushing him to do that, like that band never got a break between 87 to 93. It just never happened.
They had a bigger break than I had.
Right.
A way bigger break than I had.
Right.
And they were making the lion's share of the income. Although that being said, there was a famous story about when it came time to renegotiate my deal, there was a famous dinner with all the band members, Izzy included. And I don't think Steven was there. I don't know where Steven was, but it's been recanted to me by Earl, who was there, and John Reese, who was there. And so it goes something like, let's cut Doug down by, Izzy says, let's cut Doug down by 2.5%. Because the attorney's asking, what do you want to do with Doug? And Slash doesn't want to be odd man out. And so he says, yeah, let's cut him down by 2.5%. So Duff really doesn't want to be odd man out. So he agrees. So Axl says, let me see if I got this right. So you want to take 2.5 from Doug? You want to take 2.5 from Doug? You want to take? They go, yeah. I got a better idea. I'm going to take that 7.5 and I'm going to give that to Doug because he works 10 times harder on this fucking project than all of us. So fuck you guys. They go, we can just leave more to us, right? We just leave more to us. I mean, I can't tell you what Axl did for me. It's similar to when I took over the band and he said, look, he called me and said, look, Doug, we're giving you the baton. You're going to make mistakes, but every mistake you make is based upon the fact that you love us. And so it's okay. And that really freed me up psychologically and emotionally to make really competent decisions on behalf of the band, knowing that nobody's going to fire me over some decision I made.
So was there ever a time, like, I know Matt Storm alluded to it, like he had been fired a number of times in the band. So was there any time where you got fired more than once in the band, or was it?
No, the only time that I heard that I'd gotten fired was just posted on Facebook by Wojtek, where Axel, I think it was Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right.
Axel does the famous speech of, Dougie, my manager, the crew's spreading rumors that I fired him. And I love Dougie. My manager's name is Doug Goldstein, and I love the guy. And I had heard that, and I got really choked up. That was a moment in my life where he was my best friend, and he was my brother.
Yeah, like I guess, hearing from you all these stories, it seems like you guys were really close, like for those years that you worked with him, of course.
Yeah, incredibly close. It was bunker mentality with all those guys, though. You go through that kind of stuff, and similar to what guys in war do. It's
right.
You don't want to lose a brother. You're going to have to carry him out on your back, which is not that much fun. But more importantly, you just lost a brother. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, like, Izzy came back for a couple shows in '93. How did they end up getting Izzy to come back for those 5 shows?
Money.
Yeah. Money. So he was owed some money. I guess he came back.
He was being managed by Niven, and he tried to get cute. And, while Izzy was there, and Gilby had broke his hand, and, and so, I'm on the phone with Niven, and he's going, fuck you, Douglas. You're going to pay us X amount of dollars. I said, you know what? Just send him home. We'll just fuck it.
Yeah.
And I went to Izzy, and I said, Alan's being an asshole, and, we're paying you what's very fair and equitable. And so, he's trying to hold a gun to my head. It's bullshit. And Izzy was fine. He said, Doug, look, it's okay. I'm here.
So after Izzy left, I know Axel was like unhappy because during Double Talk and Jive, he'd always dedicated to Izzy afterwards. Like, did they leave on it? What was the reason? Can you tell us? Like, why they left on it?
I wasn't privy to it, but I think there was an inconsistency in what Izzy had told Axel and then did otherwise. Probably. I don't know. I mean, he never really, with certain rants that Axel did, I just didn't question him. We used to call it being twained because Mark Twain was a great storyteller.
Yeah.
Right.
So Izzy came back in '95. He wrote, like, I think 10 songs with Duff. Was the plan for him to write full time with the band, or at least come back as like a full time member?
No. I mean, Izzy never really led anybody to believe anything like that. Certainly not me, and I don't think Axel either. There is something worth noting. Dr. Feelgood.
Yeah.
The Motley Crue song. That's a Guns N' Roses song. That's a Guns N' Roses song. Slash and Duff wrote that riff. Dun, 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 they wrote it down in Redondo Beach when I was with them.
Oh, really?
I had Slash holed up in a hotel in Redondo Beach, and we were rehearsing, and Steven would come down once a week, and Duff would come down 5 days a week, and they were jamming and they came up with that riff. And was famous, Nicky's famous for, taking a recorder to a club and stealing songs from bands.
I've heard that.
So, so I hear this, because they recorded the record before we did, right?
So the only reason they never went after him is because it was never recorded?
Slash did drugs with him.
Can I have my $15 million back?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I mean, they're friends, so. And I never pushed it. I brought it up. I said, guys, hello, that's on. No, we know. It's Nicky. Don't worry about it.
That's funny. I never heard that one before.
Wow.
Oh, no,
I never knew that either.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I wanted to, you brought up Slash. So when Slash left in '96, like, were there a lot of overtures made to try to get him back, or it was like you guys knew for sure he wasn't coming back?
Yeah, we knew. It had been coming for a long time, and there was really no turning that back. Couldn't put that genie back in the bottle.
So when Duff and Slash and Matt left, was Axel still sort of like keeping tabs on what those guys were doing, like, or he was just kind of concerned with just focusing on himself?
It goes back to the abandonment stuff. You turn your back on him, he focuses and goes the other direction.
Bye. Right.
Yeah. Well, I guess a lot of that comes from his childhood, like whatever I've read, anyways.
It does.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and I alluded to that, and Slash said, "Bullshit, fuck you. Doug doesn't know what he's talking about." But the reality is, Axel comes out bears his soul about being abused as a child, and so I'm not talking out of school. He did Rolling stuff, for fuck's sake, right? I was sexually abused by my original father, and then Slash.
That was an Interview magazine, correct?
Yeah, I think so.
I remember grabbing that off the shelf and buying it and reading it. Yeah.
Yeah. So he does that huge interview, and he bears his deepest, darkest secret, And then Slash comes to my room 2 months later and says, "Hey, I'm going to play with Michael Jackson." Whoa, no, what? No, you have to pay for you. No. So everybody in the industry knows that Eddie Van Halen got $1 million for Beat It, for the single, right?
Yeah.
So I said, okay, at least let me negotiate the deal. No, it's already negotiated. What do you mean? You're not going to let me do my job? I said, look, I need to go to Axl with some ammunition to explain why you're going and hanging out with a pedophile. He just shared what happened. He goes, well, it's already negotiated. All right, well, so help me out here.
And then with Axl's abuse, he probably was really pissed off about this.
Well, of course. Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So I said, at least give me some ammunition to go to Axl and tell him, yeah, but he's getting X amount of dollars. He goes, well, he's giving me a big screen TV. Hang on. He's what? Yeah, he's going to give me one of those big 72-inch big screen TVs. I said, so that's what I get to go to Axl with. You're going to play with a pedophile after he just bore his soul for a big screen TV. Yeah. So, I mean, that was the end of the end right there. I mean, that was the beginning of the end, but it might as well, I mean, that sealed the fate of the band.
So,
Axl never again thought that Slash was his brother, which to that point, like I said earlier, the greatest thing I ever did, I never let Axl know what they thought of him because he loved those guys. He thought they understood how damaged his own life was.
Yeah.
Now for anybody who's never read that interview from Interview Magazine,
he knew. We all did.
No, but I'm telling the people who are going to be watching this later, whoever didn't read that article, it's fucking deep. Axl's like, I got fucked in the ass by my stepdad. Physically,
no, by his dad, his real dad.
Oh, his real biological dad.
Real dad.
I read it 20 years ago, but like this is a deep fucking interview. Yeah. And he never went that deep with Rolling Stone or anybody else.
To be one of the biggest celebrities on the planet at the time and aired that laundry.
And it wasn't a huge publication at the time either. It wasn't as big as, and I don't even think they're still in business.
Yeah, they're not. I don't think so. I don't know. I mean, I don't read. I'm gonna learn how one of these points.
But yeah, I'm telling the listening audience, this is like a really deep interview, and the pictures that were depicted in the interview for like like the picture will be on the left side of the page, and the interview will be on the right. It was just Axl's shoe.
Yeah.
And because you couldn't, he was so, I guess, in a dark place during the interview to give any pictures.
Yeah.
That the publication used stock photos almost of like his Axl shoe, Converse shoe.
Yeah.
Like there was no real. I think there was one picture of him and Stephanie in the Interview Magazine, but that was it.
Yeah.
So did Axl get a lot of blowback from his family for doing that interview? I imagine.
No, I mean they knew not to mess with him. Yeah. And then the stepdad, L. Stephen Bailey, who was a deacon in the church, actually used to get his ass kicked when they'd be driving home from church. Axl was playing piano and singing hymns, and he looks over at the public swimming pool, and the dad pulls over the car and beats the shit out of him because there's women in bathing suits there. Yet he's screwing everybody in the neighborhood, right? Because there's consistency for you. So Axl has that whole phony Christian thing going on too,
right?
And to the point that I mean, this Stephen Bailey guy was so fucking weird that Izzy Stradlin's mother, who's just a sweet lady, she shows up at the show in Indianapolis, and so is Axl's family. Not nice to everybody, right? But it's downtown Indianapolis, right? And Izzy's mother's there alone, and so I walk her to her car.
Was this the Deer Creek show? Or the Hoosier?
No, this is downtown, the arena.
So this was the Live Aid show?
No.
Okay.
This is Appetite. I think we're open for
Motley. Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay. We're open for Motley. That's all right. We're open for Motley. It's where the Indiana Pacers play. Whatever that Indianapolis building is. I forget the name of it. But they all have these. It's one of my pet peeves too, is they all, they're the Pepsi Center or the Fleet Enema Center. Or, you know what I mean? It's like,
and then they change names all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, they always sell the sponsorship rights. Big pet peeve of mine, because I want to play the Frank Irwin Event Center, right, in Austin, Texas. That's where I want to play. But so I walk her out. This is Isabel. And 6 weeks later, Axl's calling me saying, I can't believe my stepdad. Well, what? He's telling everybody in our hometown that you fucked Izzy's mom. What? Come again? Yeah. As he's telling everybody, you fucked Sonia Isabel. What's wrong with that guy? I don't know, Doug. That's why I'm not there anymore. God, no shit. Should I go beat him up? Nah. So, and he tried to get his mother out of the situation. But, when you're married, you just sometimes you stick it out.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you too, Doug. So when there's all this turmoil going on in the band, like the mid '90s, did Axl? Because I'd read things that did Axl ever consider doing a solo record like with Trent Reznor and stuff?
No, not really. No,
never.
I mean, no, Axl's tried and true. He's a very loyal person, very, very, very loyal person until you abandon him, or at least in his mind you've abandoned him, and then he'll never turn back around. That's why the reunion was a big surprise to me. I knew that it was about money, and he's got to pay for certain things in his life, and you know.
So did you notice like a huge? You talk about abandonment. Did you notice like a huge change in attitude from Axl like once his relationship with Stephanie Seymour ended?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she's not a good human being. She was engaged to 7 people at the same time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Broke his heart. I mean, he loved her and all that stuff about, he kicked her ass and bullshit. I mean, she was an instigator. She pushed and pushed and pushed. She pulled his hair and whatever else. And, sometimes, I mean, I've been in these screwed up relationships. I had a one that we call Psycho Cindy, and then there's Crazy Christy. And, so, I've never laid a hand on a woman. I don't think he ever put his hands on her, quite honestly. I think he sometimes would retaliate when it got physical. But he was going to adopt her son, Dylan. Oh, he loved that. He loved that kid. And he would have been a fantastic father, the best. Even with his own tour. And I think that would have really helped out his own psychological issues. Because he would have been so concentrated and focused on being there for Dylan. Because right. He didn't have anybody there for him as a kid.
But that's kind of, sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
He just goes into real detail in the making of the Estranged video in regards to that, about his love for Dylan.
Oh, okay. I didn't see it. Yeah.
So like after he breaks up with Stephanie Seymour, this is where Betta kind of comes in his life, right? Like she starts staying.
Betta's the one that shed that light on it. She didn't have any ulterior motives at the time. She loved Axl. It wasn't until later when she had designs on managing and putting her own family in. But, and that's just, that's a Brazilian thing. You want to take care of your family. Right. But I don't wish any ill on Betta. She's a good lady and she's an old friend. And I wish I was involved because I could help. I mean, I truly believe that I could have gotten them 10 times the money that they're currently getting and the notoriety back where it is. Nobody even knows they're playing. Nobody's marketing the tour. You show up and sell the tickets, and sometimes they'll sell out, and sometimes you have a half house.
Right.
That's another thing that nobody's ever realized is during the Use Your Illusion tour, I defy anyone to show me an empty ticket.
Right.
A seat that was unoccupied.
Yeah. Well, I mean, absolutely.
I mean, that band never. I don't think there was an empty seat in any house ever after the Aerosmith tour.
There wasn't because I was marketing it. And that's just the reality. If I knew, because I did my research, if they could sell out if they could sell 25,000 tickets, I'd put them in the 17,000 seater because I was setting up the next tour.
Right.
My thought is if there's people outside that couldn't get in and there's news coverage, then the next tour, people are going to go, fuck, I missed that last show. I'm not going to miss this one. They're going to be the first people in line.
Right.
Yeah, so I wanted to also ask you, so after Slash and Duff left, they did work a bit on the Live Era album. Is there anything you remember about like the making of that album, how it came together?
Album? I'm sorry.
The Live Era album?
The which album?
Live Era, the live album.
Live Era. Oh, Live Era. Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Sid. Yeah, I mean, all at different times they go in and do their parts, right? Because it was important to them to be involved in stuff that they had done.
Yeah. I
kind of brokered that, make sure everybody, okay, so and so is going to be at the studio from 6 to 10, and and so just divvy it up so nobody has to confront each other and they all get the same thing done.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, and I was just curious because there's not really much information available about the making of that record.
Yeah.
Actually, one thing I want to ask you, did Axl ever re-record vocals for that album? Because it sounds like a lot of discussion on the forum say it sounds like Axl re-recorded his vocals for that album.
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay. Yeah, and I've always wondered that. Yeah. So Guns are, Axl's got the new lineup. He had Sean Bevan. I guess he had Youth come in first for like a couple months. Yeah. We interviewed Youth. And we interviewed Sean Bevan, and Youth talked a bit about being like the first guy to get Axl to really sing and start writing songs, and at the early days of the Chinese Democracy album. Was shit. Was Mike Klink ever supposed to produce Chinese Democracy? Did Axel ever work for him for a short period of time?
No, not really. I mean, he'd been there, done that. Had the T-shirt to prove it. You know,
yeah.
He loves Mike. It was just not. And he tried the Roy Thomas Baker thing, and that didn't work either. And so it was kind of a revolving desk there for a while.
So what happened with Roy Thomas Baker? Because it seems like it would be a perfect fit. He produced Queen records, and Axel was a huge Queen fan.
He's just not used to working with. I mean, Roy was a bit of a superstar himself, and having two egos in the room was difficult. And Roy was a great guy, but it's just two egos in the room didn't work.
Yeah, and what
understandable.
And what happened with Youth? Because the Youth wrote, he helped Axel write Madagascar a bit. With pre-production stuff.
I think that Youth's involvement was just premature. I think Axel wasn't ready to go, and Youth had his own stuff that he wanted to do, and so they agreed to disagree and part ways amicably.
Because we interviewed Sean Bevan, and Sean seemed like a really good dude to work with. He seemed like a guy who got great with. So it seemed like,
and then of course Billy Howardell, right? I mean,
Perfect Circle.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, he was our programmer, and Axel was really hurt when Billy left.
Oh.
I'm like, well, he's got to do his own thing, and he's working with Maynard, and Axel wasn't a big Maynard fan. There was some stuff between them.
Well, that's a shame.
Oh, I never heard that. I thought Axel was always a big Tool fan.
Right.
Yeah, but Sharon led him to believe that because Maynard lived so close to where Sharon lived, there was some, I don't know, some reason as
Sure. Yeah, we don't need to delve any deeper into that. So, so I'm just trying to look at how many more questions I have left because I'm trying to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. So, Doug? Did you ever get offered to do the Behind the Music special that VH1 did?
Oh. Why would you talk to me? Why would you talk to me? I only know everything about him. Their entire career. Why? With the exception of the Cult, and I love that band, by the way. Fuck.
Yeah, I always felt that the Cult never got their due.
No way. I would love to take that catalog, and I'd love to work with Ian and Billy. I mean, those guys are rock stars, man. Fuck.
Agreed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, they're awesome. Absolutely. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you what happened. So Axel played a couple of gigs in Vegas at the Joint. You set those up. So what was the whole story with Slash? I think it was the second gig at the Joint, in 2002.
That one gets put back on me too. It's like, kiss my ass. I'll accept culpability for the things I did, and I won't for the things I didn't.
So, so in your own words, what happened that night?
So I hear Slash is going to come, and so I tell Earl to tell Axel, and Axel says, if he's fucking there, I'm not fucking coming. I don't care what you got to do, fucking make him disappear.
Right.
So I tell the promoter, I go, look, I'm stuck in a quandary here. I mean, I love Slash, and I'd love to give him a hug and say hi. I go, but Axel's saying he's not going to perform. So what are we going to do? So I hear that I physically had him thrown. Dude, come on, get over it. Why would I do that to you? I love you. I mean.
So who was the person who told Slash to beat it?
I don't know. I wasn't there. I told the promoter either Slash isn't in the room or Axel won't be in the room. They can't be in the same room at the same time. You figure it out.
Right.
Okay.
I physically escorted Slash out. Fucking get over it. No, I didn't. But maybe you were in your drunken heroin stupor and you don't remember, and that's what you're told. I don't know. I mean, I don't know why he has some of the viewpoints that he does, but you guys, I'm sure you can figure out in this interview. I don't run from shit. I own the stuff that I own, and I don't own stuff that I don't.
Right.
Yeah. So the other thing I want to ask you, that was around the time, because Robert John was still working with the band.
Love Bobby J.
Gene Kirkland was working in the band. Did those guys just end up doing different projects and they wanted to just quit Guns?
No. They got left out in the cold like me. Those guys are scrambling for work, trying to figure out what they're going to do next. And, both of them have had health issues. And, the band just, I mean, it's like Bobby J and Gene and Mark Cannon. Come on, Slash is your childhood friend. So he puts out a book of pictures. I mean, Slash still doesn't talk to him to this day. Are you kidding me? I was your best friend growing up. You don't talk to him? What's wrong with you?
We've interviewed Mark too, and off the record, we've had some insight. So we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, we interviewed Mark. Mark was really great to sit down with us. It seems like the only person who's really around since the original days is Del James.
Yeah, exactly. And Robert. I mean, Robert after Mark, but yeah. And Del doesn't return my calls, and I think he's afraid for his job. Is what it is.
Yeah, so I don't know if you have any more questions, Jeff. I feel like I went through like, I think actually there's like I have one more question, a couple more questions. So you were you also on the tour with Guns like when they were touring North America in 2002?
Yeah, part of
it. So can you?
No, I was on it, and we went to Europe, and Axel says for some I don't know why he was upset at me, but he tells Mercuriadis, who I had sold my company at Sharon's request. Sharon said, "You don't have enough juice anymore. You need to sell your company." So you're going to tell Axel? You want me to tell? No, I'll tell him. Well, she didn't. So he was mad at me, even though I'm paying her half of my money. And so this guy Merck comes in, and I'm running North America for Sanctuary, which is Rod Smallwood's company. And Merck wants my relationship with Axel, so he starts forging that. And I'm whatever, okay, if that's what you want. I mean, it's your company. And so we're in Europe, and I forget what city, but it's an outdoor venue. And I'm told that if Axel sees me, I'm fired. Okay. So myself and Bob Wine, the head of security, he only did security for the Stones, the Who, and Bruce Springsteen. Bruce Springsteen never played a show without Bob Wine being there. So what does he know? Right. So the limo's pulling up, and the promoters had let all the photographers out of the pit, and they're heading towards Axel's limo. Not like unintentionally. They don't know who's in it, but I see a train wreck about to happen. There's not going to be a show. And so I jump in front of the limo / photographers, and I tell them, stop, the photographers, go away, right? Turn around. Well, Axel fired me. Okay. All right. That's fine. Because he saw me. God forbid.
So was it the last time you saw Axel?
Pretty much, yeah. And prior to that, we're in the UK, and Axel tells me, "Hey, I bet you're pretty excited to go to New York, huh?" When am I going to New York? Well, Doug, shut up. We're playing the MTV Music Awards. No, you're not. Well, yeah, we are. No, you're not. What are you talking about? Doug, Merck has been telling the whole band for 2.5 months, we're playing the MTV Music Awards. I said, okay. He didn't tell me. I don't know. So I call the CEO of MTV, a good buddy of mine, and I said, his name Van Toffer. I say, hey, Van, I'm looking forward to seeing you. He goes, when? I said, well, in 2 days. I go, I'll be in town on Friday night. Your show's on Saturday. He goes, why are you coming in? I go, well, the band's playing. He goes, no, they're not. I go, Van, what are you talking about? I go, look, I just talked to Axel. He tells me we're on the show. He goes, no, you're not. He goes, I know who's on my show. You're not on it. See a train wreck. So I call a guy named Dave Sorelnik, who puts on all the shows for MTV. I say, Dave, look, help. You guys like your relationship with Guns, right? He said, yeah. Well, Axel thinks he's playing on Saturday night. He goes, Doug, you're not playing. I go, well, his manager, Merck, told me he is, so you need to find a spot. He goes, let me call you back. So he calls me 20 minutes later. He goes, you got 3 minutes before the credits start rolling. And that's the one that they did with Buckethead. And if you go back and you look at it, yeah, it's exactly 3 minutes. Credits started rolling. It was a fiasco. It wasn't good performance.
So was Axel pissed off about the outcome of that performance?
I don't know. He doesn't talk to me anymore.
Well, he was rushed on stage. I heard he had to run to the actual performance because of all the security.
I wasn't there. He had I think, I don't know. He had Merck there. He didn't need me.
So in the years that after, Duff, Matt, and Slash left, did you ever run into those guys ever again? Like after they left the band? Never?
Never. Not once.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I was just curious about that. And then also, you talked a bit about Zakk Wylde, and he wanted you to put the Pride and Glory album out on Geffen. So was he ever considered to be like a serious replacement for Gilby?
Yeah, I wouldn't say a replacement for Gilby. He was going to be the third guitar player.
Yeah.
Share leads with Slash.
Wasn't Slash quoted to say he's the only one he'd ever consider would be Zakk?
He didn't say it back then. If he said that,
no, I don't think he said that. He said he likes Zakk, but there were like two rhythm guitar. There are two lead guitar players, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And Axel thought. I mean, you guys know Thin Lizzy, and they have those harmonizing guitars. Axel thought that would be a killer sound. Nobody's done it.
Yeah.
Right.
There is one story that you guys should know. Rick Nielsen, early days, Cheap Trick.
Yeah.
It's a great story.
Well,
they were huge. Do you know the story, Jeff?
No, but one of his sons was roommates with my cousin at Oxford at Miami University of Ohio.
Okay.
He went on a full golf scholarship.
Okay. All right.
So I know I've heard some stories from his son about the band. Like he'd come home and Slash would just be sitting at his kitchen table talking to Rick.
Bullshit. Wrong. Sorry. Nope. Didn't happen.
Okay.
No, it never happened. Never. We're playing Rockford, Illinois. early days. I think we're open for Alice Cooper, and Rick comes to the show and he invites the band back. I'm thinking, this is a train wreck. I got to get to the next city. So we pull up in the bus, and Izzy's a huge Rick Nielsen fan. Huge. The rest of the band, they love Cheap Trick, but not like Izzy. That's his favorite band next to Stones, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So the first thing Rick does, he takes us down into the dungeon where all of his guns are, and he hands Axel a grenade. You know, you're gonna hand a grenade to anybody in the band. Why are you giving it to him? Please take it back. So they're hanging out and they're drinking with him, and there wasn't any drugs, but there's a lot of booze, except Axel, right? Axel just, and we're talking stories, and I'm like, hey guys, we got to get going here pretty soon. But yeah, okay, Doug. So, we got to be at the next city. Yeah, okay. So we go to leave, and Slash has the strongest handshake of any human being I have ever met in my life. And so he goes to say, hey, thanks, Rick. Thanks for having us over. And he shakes his hand, and Rick starts squeezing his hand as hard as he can. Slash goes, hey, let go of my hand, fucker. He goes, fuck you. You think you're a badass guitar player. And he squishes his hand. Slash like, hey, let go of my fucking hand. So he shoves him, and Rick falls down. I was like, this isn't good. I go to the bus, right? I'll be on a sec. So he goes to shake hands with Izzy. And Izzy's like, man, I'm really sorry about what happened with Slash. I don't know what's going on, dude. It's an honor meeting you. He shakes his hand, and Rick starts doing the same thing to him. Izzy's like, let go of my fucking hand, dude. What are you doing? He goes, I'm a big fan. Why are you squishing my hand? Fuck you, you fucking asshole. Oh. Izzy kicks him in the nuts. I'm like, look at the time. Gotta go. Loaded up the bus and headed out, man.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember hearing something like that like a long time ago. I know Izzy was photographed with Rick Nielsen like not too long ago too.
Is that right?
Yeah. So
I bet Rick had a cup on.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, Doug, this is just kind of a random question, but was Axel ever like a huge Alice in Chains fan?
I don't know. I mean, yes, but not as much as Pearl Jam and Nirvana. But yeah, he liked Alice in Chains.
So I
actually got a call. From not Lane Staley.
Jerry Cantrell.
Huh?
Jerry Cantrell.
Cantrell, thank you.
Yeah.
So I get a call from Cantrell's girlfriend. Doug, I hear you know a lot about rehab and stuff. I said, yeah, what's up? Well, we're afraid that Jerry's going to die. I said, what's going on? Well, a lot of blow, a lot of heroin. I said, okay. I said, well, look, in my observation with these guys, you can't do a hard intervention. You do an intervention, and I can get you all the guys for it. Do the intervention where it's like, honey, you're crying. Honey, it's hurting my heart. I'm afraid you're going to die. You can't go at them hard.
Right.
She goes, oh, well, thanks. So you can help me with that? I said, yeah, sure. This guy named Bob Timmons. He helped Aerosmith. He's tried to help me a number of times. I said, so, I'll give you his phone number and all that, and you can set it up. So that's like on a Friday. Monday morning, my phone rings. Rand goes, hey, Doug, Jerry Cantrell. Uh-oh. So I answer the phone. I go, hello? Doug Goldstein? I said, yeah, Jerry Cantrell. I said, yeah, Jerry, how can I help you, buddy? He goes, have we ever met? Not to my knowledge. He goes, so you don't know me and I don't know you. Is that right? I said, yeah. He goes, then stay out of my fucking life.
Oh, wow.
So I go, pardon me? He goes, yeah, fuck you. Fuck off. Stay out of my fucking life. Kiss my ass. I go, Jerry, look, I got a phone call from your girlfriend. There's a lot of people that are concerned about you. That's it. No more, no less. Yeah, well, lose my fucking information. If you ever fucking get involved in my life again, I'm going to fucking kill you.
Oh, wow.
Okay, Jerry. Okay, Jerry, have a nice life, buddy.
That's crazy. So did Axel ever talk to you about like when Lane Staley passed away? Because he died like around the time, I think, in like 2002.
I don't know. I don't remember that conversation. He probably would have talked to Merck about it at that point.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to see, is there anything else I want to...
I have a question.
Sure.
Yeah.
There was a time when Axel was hanging out with the guys from NWA.
Yeah.
Another band that broke really, really big around the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll say to the day I die, if it wasn't for Guns and NWA, Hollywood still would be glamorized on the movie screen about what was really going on there. There's some recordings rumored. Do you know if they exist?
No. Well, I mean, they used to show up at our gigs in LA, like the Forum, and they do all our white women and drink all our booze. But we tried to get a tour together, and no promoter would touch us because the fuck of the police thing, right?
Right.
No way. I mean, you have Guns N' Roses in the mix, right? And then they hear, an NWA, fuck the police. Sorry.
That would have been an amazing tour.
No promoter
when I was waiting at the Dayton shows the first night for Axel to show up or the band to show up, during the wait after Soundgarden.
I'll be right back, Jeff. You can keep going.
The house engineer for the house music started playing "Fuck the Police."
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we were big fans. We were big fans of NWA. Still are. I listen to the original record all the time.
I do too. I think it's amazing.
Well, Jerry Heller, he was like, I don't know, 95 or, I mean, I don't know. He's still alive, I think, but
yeah, he is.
Myself and John Reese, and I wasn't a little guy, and John Reese is really big. We're on a plane sitting behind Jerry Heller and his wife in first class. And she's got, it looks like the Madison Square Garden ice rink on her finger. And I figured out that's Jerry Heller, right?
Right.
So, hey, Mr. Heller, Doug Goldstein. He said, hey, nice to meet you, Doug. I said, yeah. This is John Reese, tour manager. Hey, nice to meet you guys. That's it. No more, no less. Wow. I get home from Hawaii 2 weeks later, and there's all this stuff in the press from Jerry Heller saying, I almost kicked the fuck out of Doug Goldstein and his tour manager. What? They were hitting on my wife. What? First off, if I'm in a relationship, I don't fuck around. That's just not who I am. Right. And secondly, why would I do that to us? Probably 75. So why would I do that to a 75-year-old man? I mean, if he wants to have a 25-year-old wife, then that's on him.
More power to him, man.
Absolutely. God bless him.
But yeah, like I was going to say, they started playing "Fuck the Police" on the house music. And I don't know if it was the promoter or the house manager or whomever. They shut that fucking song down so fast before we ride it. Well, wow. I mean, it was like 11:45 and the band still hadn't shown up yet. So I think they figured that if they kept playing it, they were going to get some seats pulled out and thrown on stage. So
I've seen that too.
Yeah.
I've seen that too.
Yeah. I mean, it was just an opportunity for the crowd to get erupted. And I think that they were just like, no.
Right. Well, you know the thing that we haven't discussed that I thought was just classic was that during the shows we were trying to figure a way to keep the crowd entertained, and so I think it was George Elizondo or Paul Becker, both guys were on our video crew. They started filming the girls in the audience, and they're all lifting up their tops and showing their boobs.
Yeah.
The crowd loved it, man. It's like they forgot about Axel not being there yet.
Right.
There's some great stock footage of that stuff. I mean, just that stuff alone that's in the vault should be released at some point. You know?
We agree. Like, we want to know where the vault is and why Axel's holding it. I mean, there's so much stuff out there.
It's not Axel. You can't put that just solely on him. No way. Okay. Sorry. That's a mutual decision from the band. They haven't agreed on how and why to release it. And like I said, Jeff, I would have released it in IMAX theaters 3 months before I put the tickets on sale.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, I want to see the footage. I know everybody else wants to see it too.
I'm in it.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be.
And that's another thing. They used to ask me to be in the videos all the time. You'll see John Reese, you'll see Earl Gavin, you'll see Ronnie. You don't see me unless it's a live video like Paradise City where I'm in the pit.
Right.
You don't see me.
So, Doug,
I've never wanted to be. I've always told people I'm not in the business of selling Doug Goldstein tickets. I'm not.
Right.
I don't care about the fanfare. I don't want my name on buildings. I do what I do anonymously, and I love what I do, and that's it.
So, Doug, do you have to give permission? Like, do you have to sign off on them releasing the documentary?
I don't think. I don't know. I mean, it's never come up.
Speaking of which, have you been contacted recently to do any more forthcoming documentaries?
No, nobody talks to me. They've got Niven. He ran the band. Thanks, McWall. I mean, because look, you know, the reality is I know what I did, and I'd certainly offer my viewpoint to anybody that asks, but nobody asks. So that's fine.
Well, we all have our own opinion of Mick Wall, so.
Yeah. Well, it depends on who gets to him first, who gets to beat him up.
Race you home.
Yeah. So Doug, are you ever going to release a book?
I've been asked a number of times. I don't know. I mean, you know, I've been asked to do a book, movie, but it's not just on GNR. Certainly that would be a focal point, but my whole life's been pretty interesting. I mean, I almost died in a quad accident, a 4-wheel motorcycle, where I had no helmet on. I did 5 flips, 155 feet, landed on my head. Almost died. I'm almost bled out. I should have died.
Right.
I broke my neck snowboarding. I was quadriplegic, and now I'm not. And so almost died from a diabetic coma about a year ago. So I've had some brushes with death. And so there's
fucking warrior right there, kids.
Well, I'll tell you what, dude, it's, you know what, honestly, Jeff, God's not done with me. I've got other things that I need to do here. And I truly believe in my heart that one of those things is to make sure there isn't homelessness that we honor our veterans. I mean, I mentioned the ribbon to you. I plan on doing ribbons for everything. Ocean Conservancy. I mean, my responsibility when I see people that are my son's age, Jake or Eli, my 19-year-old, Jake's 24, Eli's 19. But when I see kids that age, the first thing I do is apologize, because my generation were capitalist industrialists, and we fucked this place up.
Right.
You're supposed to leave the earth, Mother Earth, a better place than when you found it.
Right.
I mean, that's what you do when you borrow somebody's car. You should.
Right.
And so we've really fucked this place up, guys that are my age, and we turned our back and pretend like it didn't happen, all for money. And so in my lifetime, I truly want to do something about that. And that's kind of that's where my spin on the planet is these days.
Understand?
Yeah, absolutely. I had one more question for Doug. So in 2000, when Slash had all his heart stuff, did Axel know about that was going on, or?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, no, I don't think so. I didn't know about it. So.
Okay. I think that's pretty much all the questions I have, Jeff. I don't know if you had any more for Doug.
I guess I have two. The illusion parties, like the post games.
Yeah, right.
Any ones that you want to talk about that may have stuck out in your mind?
I'll be honest with you. I was never there. One, I was married, and so I don't, as I mentioned just recently, if I'm married, I don't kind of associate with that Sodom and Gomorrah, if you will. And plus, I'm a Christian guy, and so, but I don't think they were all that out of control. I think they were just overabundant. You know what I mean? It was. I mean, I don't think there was crazy sex and stuff going on. Those guys. It wasn't Van Halen during the '84 tour. That was crazy.
That's the first album I ever owned, and it turned me on to rock and roll. I stole it from my sister. I worked a
number of those shows, and but it wasn't that with the Guns guys ever. I mean, they certainly had their whatever, but it was not that. They were respectful of women, and that's one thing I'm prideful of. I think I ingrained in them is do what you're going to do, but be respectful, right? Mm-hmm. And all of them were, every one of them were. And Duff is just like me. If he's in a relationship, he doesn't mess around.
Yeah.
And I can't think of one exception to that rule. Gilby, certainly no way. I mean, he's married to a wonderful lady, Danielle, and they've got this baby, Frankie, which is she named her jean company after her, Frankie B Jeans, was madly successful. Maybe one of the reasons why Gilby didn't really come back. He doesn't need the money, quite honestly.
Right.
But I mean, so there wasn't the excess that people think it was. Not at all. Right. I mean, it was more like pizza and beer and dress in crazy stuff.
Right.
And I mean, it's akin to the green M&Ms with Van Halen, right? I mean, pull out all the green M&Ms. It's just for histrionics more than anything else.
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't as, and I was also usually in settlement during those times.
Usually what? I'm sorry.
Settlement, financial settlement for the shows.
Right.
So while that stuff's going on, everybody else may be having a good time, whatever. But I'm busy. I mean, I didn't rest at all during that tour.
Yeah.
I mean, my sleep cycle since age 4 is 3 nights no sleep, and on the 4th night, 4 to 6 hours.
That's exactly. Sid can attest. I'm the same as them. The same.
Yeah, Jeff is the same.
Well, you know what that is? Jeff is a sign of intellect. I mean, it's I spin at about a 182 IQ, and Einstein was 160. I can't hang out with dumb fuckers like that. It's but the cute part of that story is during Appetite, Slash knew. I mean, they all knew what my sleep cycle was, and Slash was so cute. He'd come in on night 4, and he'd answer my phone while I slept. What a sweetheart!
Nice guy.
What a sweetheart! Other than sleeping with my wife, yeah, he's a nice guy.
Hey, it's Slash.
That's right. Yeah, you got to respect it. You got to respect it with both of them, him and her. It was what it was, man.
I guess my final question would be, what's your most Spinal Tap moment in the whole music business?
Wow. Could be my time with Black Sabbath, because they are the original Spinal Tap.
Fuck yeah.
I was literally driving Glenn Hughes. We'd stay behind, and while they're putting Ray Gillen, God rest his soul, he also did the Badlands record with Eric Singer and Jakey Lee. But they're rehearsing him, and I'm staying back, and I'm driving Glenn. And a couple times they didn't have anybody to do sound check, and so Tony said, "Can you step back?" I said, "I can't sing." He goes, "Just multiple words." So My favorite one was I've got the microphone in my hand. And I'm singing, "Oh, the chicks with big fat asses looking for their backstage passes on their knees. They know their function. The player lips for a little suction. Oh Lord, yeah." He's like, "Get off the stage." Hey, you asked. You asked. And I used to make up lyrics as a kid to songs. My brother would play them, and like "Thank You Girl" from the Beatles. And "Thank You Girl" I turned into "Spank You Girl" for me when I was about 5. Right? My brother's just like, what are you doing? So it's I have, but that's probably that whole deal, because Don Arden, Sharon Osbourne's dad, is managing him. You walk in, first off, it's the end of Jet Records, and so I'm calling and "Hello, Jet," and "Hi, it's Don Arden." "Oh, who's calling?" Doug goes, "Oh, hello, Doug, it's him." He'd let everybody else go, and he had the top office in the 9000 building on Sunset, right across from Tower Records. So just to mess with her dad, Sharon puts "Diary of a Madman" on the 2 most expensive billboards in LA at the time. And her dad can't turn around without seeing "Diary of a Madman." Sharon's classic, man. I love Sharon Osbourne. She is classic.
Yeah, she's the queen bee of the music industry, if you ask me these days.
God bless her. Her and Ozzy used to send me Christmas cards, every year. I went to Jack's 8th birthday, and Ozzy was all messed up. It's daytime. It's daytime. He's hammered. He's, "Hey, I want to meet Spare Wheel." "Who?" "Spare Wheel." "Ozzy, I'm lost." "Well, the one's Axel. Clearly the other one with the top hat must be Spare Wheel." So I take him down the street, and I knock on Slash's door, thinking Slash can be happy. He gets to meet Ozzy, right?
Yeah.
So I knock on the door. He opens the door, and he's got some porno star with him. And he goes, "Why are you here?" I go, "Ozzy." He goes, "Fuck Ozzy." I go, "Fuck Ozzy." "No, it's Ozzy." He goes, "Fuck Ozzy." Ozzy pushes the door up. "Where's the drugs? Come on, man. Where's the drugs?" "Okay, I'll get him out of here." Slash, "No, fuck off, Doug. Where's the drugs, Spare Wheel?"
God, what I would have done to be a fly on the wall that day.
It's classic. I mean, look, and this is the tip of the iceberg. I mean, if I did write the book or the movie, it would have to be a 3-part sequel. And I already know the name of it. I mean, if I end up doing it, it'll be The Real Forrest Gump. I mean, that's who I am. Run, Forrest, run.
So, Doug, let's talk about the stuff you're working on now. So what are some of the projects you're working on, bands you're working on these days?
Well, there's a band out of Florida called Breaking Theory, a guy named David Marfett. Fantastic band. I'm working on that one. One of the greatest singers on my Facebook, a guy named Adam Moya, out of McAllen, Texas. His band, a bunch of Hispanic guys, Latino guys, really good dudes. He's better than Robert Plant ever wanted to be during his heyday. I mean, this bluesy, unbelievable voice. I mean, just crazy voice. That's music. I mean, I've got some other things. There's a band out of the Czech Republic. Best live band I'd ever seen. They didn't have any songs. So I brought him with Steve Thompson. And it's the first time. Steve's like I am. He's not a trendsetter. I'm sorry. He's not a follower. He's a trendsetter. So he's created the first ever EDM meets rock. Okay. And all I can tell you is it is stupid good. And then I have a shoe patent that I have. And a lot of that money is going to go towards feeding homeless and vets and Ocean Conservancy and pediatric cancer, whatever else. But on that one, it's going to revolutionize the shoe industry. My guy, getting Pete Dillon, who designed the most successful shoe in Nike's history, the Nike Shox. He saw it. He goes, "Doug, you know what you got?" I said, "Yeah, it's a size 10. "No, that's $1 billion shoe." So, if he's wrong by 75%, I've worked for a lot less than $250 million. But the money's running out. Quite honestly, it's gone through 2 pretty nasty divorces, and but I'm not worried about it. I mean, God's good to me, and I already know that in time. There's a guy named Ray Miranda who's a partner of mine, and he sold 6 television shows to the Fox network, and I'm executive producer on his shows. So, that's fun and that'll be profitable. But my new deal is I have to give half of my money away. I didn't, and I believe in my heart of hearts. That's why it's gone. Right. I didn't do the right thing. I took care of family and friends. Shit, there's $1.6 million I've loaned out that I can't find those people anymore. Sorry.
One's not me.
No, not yet, Jeff. Not yet.
But I'll take it if you got it.
That's right. Yeah. So even to this day, having very little money left, what I did for the past 2 months, I show up in a city and I go to the ATM and I take anywhere from $200 to $500 out, and I can't go home until I have spent every single penny on feeding homeless people in that city.
Wow.
And it's just what I do. I don't tell them, "Hey, I'm Doug Goldstein." I just do it. I just do it. But now I can't really do that until I start making money again. But I will do it. I mean,
well, I suggest, I'm not suggesting you do what you want, but maybe take a film crew with you one time, put it up on YouTube, and see what the reaction is.
Well, that wouldn't be much of an anonymity, would it, Jeff?
Wow, yeah, you go against that, but still.
I do. Yeah, I do. I believe in making my money in a different way.
Yeah,
and I wouldn't want to put somebody homeless on screen.
Understandable, yeah.
A lot of these people are vets in the first
Correct.
place that have their own PTSD issues, and so that's why they choose to vacate.
Understandable.
So I have a different way that I'm approaching it, but noble what you said, and I thank you for that.
Completely understand. Yeah.
So much for anonymity. I just told everybody that's going to watch the podcast what I'm doing too. But you know what? Just respect the fact, gang, who's watching this and thinks that it's cool what I'm doing, that I do want to keep the anonymity. I don't want my name on a building. I don't want to be, just posthumously, if you want to say, hey, he was a pretty cool guy who cared about people.
We can respect that,
children to death, and his ex-wife creates issues there where my kids don't talk to me, and it's just is what it is. I've never even raised my voice with my kids. I love them more than life itself.
So speaking of your kids, Doug, do you tell us about your kids' bands?
Yeah. I'm not supposed to help him. But Jake, my little guitar hero son, he's the oldest boy. Sweet, sensitive, caring, loving soul, spiritual, good kid. He has a band called Hunny. It's Hunny, like Winnie the Pooh spells honey. He's on Spotify, and they're fantastic. They had the #1 single on K-Rock, biggest alternative station in the world, on their local radio show for like 4 months. Well, yeah, thank you. But it's funny. God bless him. He doesn't want his father to do anything to help because whether he succeeds or not, he doesn't want to be known as the kid that rode the Guns N' Roses coattails. I respect the hell out of it. He's doing it on his own. And in the past, he's drove Uber. He works at a warehouse, a merchandising warehouse with music, when he's not on the road. And they've toured with The Neighborhood and Bad Sons. They actually went to the same high school as those two bands. Really ironic. Right. Those three bands all went to the same high school, and they're all having their own level of success. But it's very early Duran Duran, or more importantly, like the Smiths. Kind of that. Has a British vibe to it. Mm-hmm. Really cool. I mean, it's bomb. And the single they released, "Cry for Me," which is their big hit, to me, it's not even the best record on their EP, the best single on their EP. July or Natalie, those songs. Their drummer is one of the best drummers I've ever heard. He has this jazzy kind of syncopation style. Mm-hmm. So it's very offbeat. I'm off the beat, right? It's fucking bomb. I listen to that EP every single day of my life. And I mean, from a selfish perspective, I'd love to have a crack at that record instead of his manager. But, I have to respect the fact that he's doing what he's done. And then my other kid, Eli, he's the brains in the family, right? I mean, and it's not like Jake's a dummy by any stretch, but Eli's like super crazy bright. And he's going to Willamette University in Salem, Oregon, and he has a solo project called Pullover Sweater. And he should bring somebody into vocals, but the songwriting, he's got some stuff on YouTube. You guys check it out. I mean, you guys, Jeff, please check it out.
Yeah, we'll put the link to it.
Yeah, it's Pullover Sweater is the name of it. And he doesn't talk to his dad, but so I guess he's not going to be asking for my help anytime soon. But I told Jake, I go, your brother's better than you are. He goes, I know. Once these songs mature and he finds a singer to put his stuff out, there's a couple songs in there that I forget the name is one instrumental, but it's one of the best songs I've ever heard. Just that good. And I know a lot about music because of living with my brother and touring with all the bands. I know about song structure. I know, there's a lost art, the art of using a bridge. Right? Nobody uses a bridge anymore.
Right.
And that's key to me. I mean, it's the reason why some bands don't succeed. That, and I miss lead guitar. I mean, I'm still waiting for the alternative band to have a shredder. That's one of the frustrations. My oldest son, Jake, he's a shredder, but he plays power chords. And I'm like, nope.
Yeah, right. There's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah.
Hey, Doug, I wanted to ask you. So one question I forgot to ask. So Smashing Pumpkins opened a couple dates for Guns.
Yeah.
So Axl was a big fan. Yeah, they did back in the Use Your Illusion tour.
No. Really?
Yeah. There's 2 dates listed.
So I was going to manage Billy Corgan. It was between me and Sharon.
Oh, yeah?
He chose Sharon, and 2 weeks later, she stole his jet in the middle of the night. Her and a buddy by name Nick Kua. Man, they're gone. Left her all holding the bag. Billy didn't call me to go, gee, I fucked up. That's okay. Billy's Billy. He's a sweetheart and wow, crazy talented.
Yes. So I don't have anything else left. Did you have anything else, Jeff?
I have one other thing.
Sure.
The drummer from Evanescence, the smartest musician I've ever met in terms of understanding music and understanding music business, a guy named Will Hunt. He's got a band called White Noise Owl. Oh my God, is it good? I'm trying to get Steve Berman with Interscope to sign it, and he keeps telling me, you know, why I'm playing it for my A&R guys. Really? Why? You don't know a hit when you hear one? I mean, and they were having some good success at radio, and we're just kind of stalling out because I need the label support to drive it at radio.
All right.
But White Noise, I'm telling you guys, that one is grand slam. That's huge. It's really good.
I just wrote it down.
Yeah. You'll love that one, Jeff. I mean, it's rock, man. It's rock. And it is bomb. There's a video called Something. Check that out.
Writing it down.
Oh, fuck. That song is so monster. And they let Will, you know, it's one of my problems with music is I call it the pap-pap drums. Where is the rich sounding full drums, the Tommy Aldridge stuff, right?
Right.
And this has it. I mean, because Will's a drummer. And so he made sure that it's in there. And it is sonically some of the best drumming I've heard in a long time.
I'll look forward to listening to it soon. I'll put it on my list of things to do when we finish up here.
Yeah, thanks so much, Doug, for coming on. We appreciate it.
Absolutely, Jeff. It's been a real pleasure, man.
It's the pleasure's all ours, man. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. And that offer, if you ever make it Cincy, I'll happy to show you the ropes.
I gotta go see where Pete Rose. Why don't they let that guy in the Hall of Fame? Are you kidding me?
Oh, that's another 2 hours of podcast we can get into.
Yeah, gee, you mean an athlete who gambled? Oh, gee, how unusual.
No, and he's the one who got caught. That's
exactly. Exactly. But I will close with this, Jeff. I was a huge Johnny Bench fan, and I kind of liked Pete Rose, and then I went to San Diego Stadium because the Padres sucked, but that was my team. So I'm a huge Johnny Bench fan. I wait outside, just like the kids do, waiting for Axl Rose. I wait outside, and Johnny Bench walks right past me and gets on the bus. Pete Rose stayed there for 2.5 hours and signed every single autograph.
Yep.
I got rid of my Johnny Bench poster. I put up a number 14 Pete Rose poster, and that was it.
He's our pride and joy, man. Like
Charlie Hustle.
Hell yeah. I saw him a few years ago in Vegas. He's still doing the signings down there in the Bellagio.
God bless him.
And we had a talk about Cincinnati. He's a great guy. Trying to think what else I was going to say about that. I mean, what was I going to say? Oh, I guess I just spaced. I apologize.
I think you should have Lee May go with them go with them to the Baseball Writers Association. Just start beating people up with baseball bat. That black baseball bat. Right?
Yeah, right.
George Foster. Didn't George Foster?
Yeah.
Black baseball bat.
George Foster. You can bring Dave Parker too.
Clubbing people like baby seals. Let him in. Let him in.
I met Johnny Bench once. And when I asked him to sign something, it was like I asked him for his one of his kidneys.
Exactly.
So,
I'm surprised that he said he didn't say if you want somebody to sign something, call Coco the gorilla. that's the gorilla that signs, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Put Pete in, bottom line, though.
Absolutely. Let Charlie Hustle in, damn it. Anybody that'll knock over Ray Fosse at an all-star game, come on. He's my hero.
Yeah, Pete grew up about 5 miles from here on the north side. So I mean,
really?
Yeah, he's just the other side of the viaduct. He's a hometown hero.
He grew up in Cincinnati and played there.
Yep.
Why did he go to the Phillies? Whatever. That's a story for another time.
He came back.
He did. Yep. God bless Pete Rose, bud.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thanks so much, guys.
Peace, guys.
We'll go off the record. I have a question to ask Doug off the record. So